If I can have everybody's attention, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And just a note, regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Architects and Engineering Examiners is taking place in room 426 of the Engineering, Math, and Computer Science Building at the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga. And notice of this board meeting is posted on the board website on October 5th, 2015. If you are a guest of ours, and we welcome you here, reminder to sign in, and the sign-in sheet's somewhere over in that direction. So
I have it right here.
Oh, you got no different sign-in sheet.
Other sign-in sheets.
Before we get started, I want to thank the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Tremendous host. We've been very well pampered and taken care of. We've had great snacks, and she's been very attentive. The lady across the hall has been very attentive to everything that we've asked. And so I want to thank you all for that. Thank you for great meeting facilities, and all those that had a part in making Chattanooga the city that you've made it. It's been a wonderful host for us during our stay, and we appreciate that. So with that being said, we'll do I'll hesitate. Wait just a minute, and we will do a roll call. Okay.
Susan Ballard.
Here.
Hal Baltrup.
Here.
Robert Campbell.
Present.
Jerry Hadley.
Present.
Philip Lim.
Here.
Phil Lockwood.
Here.
Rick Thompson is absent. Frank Waxter.
Here.
Ricky Versailles.
Here.
Stephen King.
Here.
Paul Reinbold.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Fantastic. At this time, we would like to acknowledge our guests. If you don't mind, let's see. We want them to stand up, or do we want to open for them? We can go ahead and let them introduce themselves now, I suppose. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Mac, since I know you're Mac, I'll let you start off. How's that?
Mac McCarley, President of Video Engineering Associates, President of TSPE in Chattanooga. Privileged to be here. Thank you all for coming to Chattanooga.
Dallas Rugger, building official with the City of Chattanooga.
Vance Travis, TWH Architects. I was where you are today about 10 years ago, or 10 years. And I served on the A&E Board with the likes of Bill Beatty, Ron Gobble, and Ed Johnson from Nashville as architect reps. Also served with the infamous Ted Wynn, who I see you guys still use for his expertise. He was really good at grilling the architects when they got out of line. And of course Melvin Downs, who was one of our Chattanooga engineers, served with us, and I think David Lose was the landscape architect rep, and Linda Smith the ID rep, and it was a wonderful experience to have the opportunity to spend the time for all the money that y'all made serving the state of Tennessee. Glad to be here. I've got a few questions for you later.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm Gary Hilbert. I'm a registered architect, but I'm also director of the Land Development Office for the city.
Great. Good. Very good.
Jack Hopkins with Applied Engineering in Knoxville. I'm a consulting mechanical engineer.
Dean.
Please, I'm the interim dean of College of Engineering and Computer Science here at UTC, and thank you for your kind words. We are really pleased having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carla Levitt, landscape architect for the City of Chattanooga Land Development Office.
Wade Hines with DWH Engineering. I'm a consulting engineer here in Chattanooga.
Chris Davis, I'm formerly with Volker. I'm currently starting a new entity called CE Technical Services. I've got a question in the open forum session.
All right. Very good. Thank you all, and great to have everybody. It's a larger crowd than we normally have, so if we don't know what to do from time to time, forgive us. John, do we have any announcements?
No.
Nothing special? Make sure that you give Wanda your information. Everybody has signed the minutes, so we're good on that. Fantastic. All right. You have in front of you on your iPads or on paper, and I believe it's on page 5 is what I have. Is that correct? Your agenda. So make sure you review that. Are there any changes or additions that we need to make to the agenda? Nothing? All right, well, let's just consider the agenda set as we've got it. We'll move forward then. All right, so we'll start out with open forum, and we'll kind of start. Let's do this differently. Let's start in reverse order. How's that sound? So, Chris, you said you had a question, so we'll start out that way.
Yes, sir. I mentioned, my name's Chris Davis. I'm formerly with Volker. I was, just to give you a little bit of history, I was there 18 years, had a few years experience before that. But I was just recently laid off. But I've built my career here in Chattanooga working for an engineer. And I'm a technologist. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering Technology, and from Southern Tech. Now it's part of Kennesaw State. But so I'm not licensed in Tennessee. I am licensed in Georgia and a couple of other states, Alabama and North Carolina. But I'm a lifelong resident. I don't want to move. And so I was going to offer my services as a designer, CAD operator to other engineers in town. I think that there's enough work with engineers in town that need some help. And as close as we are to North Georgia, I could go into North Georgia and work as an engineer on projects in North Georgia. And so my main question is, with the way I am marketing myself, am I within the legal realm of Tennessee? I have my name with PE, and then parentheses Georgia, Alabama, and North Carolina, and then my CPESC. And then I give my educational and professional registrations there, and of course Tennessee is not mentioned. And then when I go through what I'm offering to do, I mention design services, I don't mention engineering services. And then I have basically what I would call a disclaimer at the bottom of the first page that says CD Technical Services and Mr. Chris Davis provide professional services as the engineer of record in Georgia, Alabama, and North Carolina only. Projects in Tennessee are always performed under the responsible charge and supervision of the civil engineer licensed in Tennessee. Mr. Davis and TD Technical Services also have close relationships with other civil engineers experienced in traffic engineering, etc. So I just want to make sure that I want to be upfront with everybody and make sure that I'm not doing something that's wrong. If I need to reword something, I'm willing to do it.
Pretty good.
And I've got, if somebody wants to look at this, I can
Sure,
give it to them.
he could pass that around. You
Yeah.
can give it to Mr. Lim.
I have a couple here, you can pass it both ways.
And I'm not sure that we will, we'll need to, I think, review this to make sure. Is that correct?
Based on what he said, though, it sounds like
Yeah,
he is
based on what he
following
said, you're fine.
the law. Nice beard, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
But it sounds like you're handling yourself appropriately at this point. But if you want a formal response from the
It would be
board,
nice.
then the executive office will get in touch with you. We can talk
Could
about it.
we keep that copy?
Yes, ma'am.
Good luck in your new venture.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming.
Do you have anything on open forum or?
Sure. There's a couple of either divisions of review agencies or entire agencies locally that do not have licensed reviewers. And so I guess my question to the board would be, is that a concern when, as the engineer of record, you then receive comments or corrections from non-licensed reviewers? Or is that appropriate?
Board?
Well, that's a common situation in most jurisdictions. Certainly, even as in Mr. Davis's case, he clearly has experience that would lend itself to some level of proficiency. He seems very competent. Same with local officials, codes, and land development and others that review plans. Typically, or in the case that I'm familiar with mostly, I'm from Nashville. I work for the city. I was a consultant for a while, but worked for the city and have had plan reviews by that city and some other cities as a consultant particularly. And usually there's a checklist of issues that or items that must be present on a design set of plans, certainly. But oftentimes, my experience is that those doing the review are not licensed, but I found most of them are very competent and familiar with the content and the requirements of design for civil projects particularly, because that's the area that I practice in. So I'll let anyone else weigh in if they want to. There's not a requirement for them to be licensed unless their local functional job description requires it. But in terms of the board imposing a requirement for licensure in those capacities, we don't have any that I'm aware of. Do we, Mr. Cochran? Okay. Robert, you have experience with jurisdictions, municipalities.
Go ahead, Ricky, first.
Yeah, I think that is more typical that code officials are not licensed and they're not providing design services. They're providing code review, and so their expertise is in code and application of the code. So I think that's pretty normal. I mean, there are very rare occasions they might ask something that, like they might ask me to stamp something that I didn't do, and so the reply has to be, we can't do that. But that's pretty rare. Most of the time they stick to code review.
Anybody else? Steve, do you want to weigh in?
Well, he's looking at me because I work for the city of Knoxville. I can tell you how we do it. Of course, in Knoxville, the engineering department is separate from the codes department. But in engineering, we probably have as per capita, as far as a percentage of PEs, as much as any consultant. So we have some young engineers who do review, but they are always on a track to become licensed. We really push it, and our system's set up where if you don't become licensed, you can't go very far in our organization. But even those reviewers that aren't licensed are supervised by someone who is, which is much the same way as a consultant to do a design. A consultant may have a technician doing a lot of the details of a design, but they're under the direct supervision of a PE who are responsible for that work.
And I guess my question would be situations that don't fall into that. Other situations that are entirely managed by either non-licensed or non-engineering degree managers, or organizations that just do not have an engineer on staff.
Well, again, I'm speaking only from the engineering review side, the stormwater requirements, that kind of thing. I'm not really addressing the building official side. But that is a problem in probably all states, but I know in Tennessee, a lot of cities don't have appropriate engineering staff really to do what this board would like them to do. And that's a continual struggle that we have. There is a section in our law that says any public work over a certain amount be done by a PE, and it includes maintenance projects. So one could interpret even repaving streets as a maintenance project, but that's a struggle that this board has, just like with other exemptions. We have exemptions, perceived exemptions in academia, in a real exemption in industrial world, in government, a lot of things like that, federal, local, and state. So that is a concern that we have, but we really encourage registration, but there isn't any kind of law that we have that says the person reviewing your work has to be a PE.
Hal?
Just to qualify, I think I heard you say, is part of your question involve construction management of engineering design projects for municipalities or public?
Review.
Just review.
Design.
Okay. In your experience, have they made suggestions of design change, or
It depends on the organization. Some are great about sticking to specific sections of the code, referencing them in comments. Others go well beyond that. They go into the design role of change it this way because this is what I want.
Okay.
And those are the ones I'm more concerned about, not the ones that can say 3.4 the code states this, please update.
Well, not to get too deep maybe unless you want to share more, but in those instances where you're asked to change or modify designs, are the modifications, in your opinion, inappropriate for the designs that you prepared?
Sometimes.
Okay.
And
So
I've refused to do them.
Okay.
Which then puts in another situation.
Understand.
You refuse to address the comment.
Sure. And in my jurisdiction, we have an appeal process. I don't know if that exists in the examples that you've experienced, but typically, in our case, when situations such as that have happened, and the design consultant, and again, it's not very often, but if the consultant has taken exception to the request for design change, they have the recourse of going through an appeals process that's typically the higher level or department head level inquiry on a decision on that particular issue. So I don't know, again, in the example that you're citing, if that's an option, but it's smart of you not to compromise your design or ethical principles. That could be dangerous for you, and it sounds like you appreciate that. But I would, again, you want to maintain a positive work relationship, and I understand you don't want to alienate those people that have somewhat your fate in their hands. But I would suggest that, you might talk with them and see if there's an appeal process. Have you found yourself not being able to exercise your commerce as a result of these examples?
Some are still working out.
Okay.
And we do have an appeal process, so
Okay.
that's what we have to do.
Okay.
It's always frustrating because it takes time, and
Sure.
time is money, basically. So.
Well, as a consultant, you appreciate the benefit of client relationship building, I'm sure. So, if you find that your ethical or professional principles are compromised and you've tried all venues that you have been able to, I think that you could approach the board office, the executive board office, and just advise of such. There are occasions where, especially in the qualification-based selection process most recently, we have been very diligent in communicating with local purchasing agents and even after advisement by engineers that have been compelled to submit price as part of a selection process. That's against the law now in Tennessee, and our executive office will send a letter of notice or information to the appropriate authority just to remind them of that law. So if you find yourself in a similar situation, you can communicate with the board office and they could give you some additional guidance. Okay.
Jerry, let's go ahead and wrap this one up, please.
If it's strictly codes review, they should be looking at the project based on code compliance. Anything other than that, they're getting out of their realm. And I know that depending on the building department, some of them are requiring their reviewers go through the appropriate ICC courses to ensure that they are well aware of the code and the various components of it. So if they're having you change a design, then they just overstepped. And as Hal says, if there's an appeal process, that's the best remedy, get that resolved.
Right.
I got a quick question. Is what they're asking you to do more or less than the code requires?
More.
Okay. They actually have the privilege to do that. If they were asking you to do less, then we'd be arguing about it. But, the code is the minimum standard for health, safety, and welfare. And there are some, jurisdictions that require more than the international code or whatever code you're referring to. But if they're asking you to do more, and it's part of their policy, then they have the right to do that. And what you're probably not wanting to do is change something that you did with net code, and now they want you to go even further. I'm guessing.
There's been a couple.
But it costs more money usually, but they have the right to do that in their jurisdiction. They're not, usually there's one person in that group that's the authority that has jurisdiction, and so you have to comply with what they have. But if they're asking for less, now that's a different ballgame.
And I think what we're saying is, codes are codes, health, safety, and welfare and professional judgment are another thing. If what they're asking you to do is not specified in a code or in a procedure or something, and you believe that it will impact the health, safety, and welfare of the public, then you're certainly obligated to appeal and to ask the question. If you believe, for instance, that they're asking you to change a design that will impact the health, safety, and welfare of the public, then you certainly are doing that. However, if they're asking you to increase the depth of a subgrade of your base from 6 inches to 8 inches or 8 inches to 12 inches or something like that, then that's something that they're well within their purview to do. So, I mean, I think there are a lot of gray issues out there that we all deal with every day, but we have to make that judgment, and that's what makes us professional. So, but very good discussion. Next.
I'll be here to listen.
Okay, fantastic.
I have a question about the technology program.
Okay.
I talked with John a little bit yesterday. We have a technology program in the college. It is growing. It is ABET E-Tech accredited. And but students cannot get their license here, so they can only get from Georgia or other states. So, and the numbers are growing. We are putting a Bachelor of Applied Science degree, and with Chattanooga State, you'll get 4 transfer students from the technology program. So, is it something that Tennessee is thinking about giving license to technology students, or is it something that you don't consider right now?
Let me speak for me, and then I'll let the rest of the board go. We have not, that I know of, entertained anything officially about licensing technology students. Now, we occasionally have the discussion about technology degrees and the coursework and equivalency, but there, in our opinion and the opinion of others, there are too many deficiencies in the calculus, the statics, dynamics, the thermodynamics, and those kind of things that would lead us to believe that that is very unlikely for us to consider. Now that doesn't mean that as some of the technology, if those things step up over time, that may be something that we would look at, but at this time, no. So anybody else want to weigh in on any of that? All right, great. But again, I think that degree is certainly a great degree for a lot of kids that want to make a positive impact on this whole profession and realm of it.
Ironically, I'd like to continue the discussion that started, but I wanted to basically talk about the relationship between the professional or the design professional and the building official. And when I use the term building official, I really mean the working level plans reviewer, because that's where we're experiencing most of our issues. But when a design professional prepares documents for a building, they're approved by that building official. That's who is reviewing our work. And they rarely have design or professional, not reading my writing very well. They're rarely design professionals themselves. Sometimes in the larger cities, I think we see that, but just like our own businesses, the design professional is often at the top, but the guy doing the work is not really, that person. Is that really logical to begin with for what we're here as design professionals? I think that's a question that needs to be asked. Regardless, codes and standards in recent years have become more complex and more based in engineering rather than the simple prescriptive codes that we knew of before. Some of the examples are seismic, energy, and fire protection. And in the meantime, our plans reviewers seem to have regressed, in my opinion. I've spoken with several around, the Knoxville area, some in North Carolina and Georgia. And, we aren't paying our plans reviewers what we should. We're not sending them to seminars. They're not participating in the codes process. So they really aren't getting the support that they should get. I believe it's a problem in our profession that is not sustainable. And we need to take proactive steps to do something that will protect our profession as well as the public. I believe this is starting to affect the public. So, I'm probably going to be a little critical here to some, but, I look inward to our own profession first, and I see an overall attitude in our design profession that if something is not enforced, it's not required. So if a code issue is not enforced by the building official, then it's not required. And I also see an attitude that if it is not caught, then it is okay and thus has been approved by the local official. So, whether that is not caught through negligence or not offered through negligence or just simply forgotten by the design professional. I see that day to day. I see a general lack of knowledge with respect to building codes. Many firms are small and large firms as well. They're either unable or unwilling to purchase building codes. I have a small firm. I'm 2 people. And I buy those codes. And I frequently have large firms call me to ask, can you send me a copy of this table? Some of you guys have been there. That's not right. And I also see an unwillingness to learn a code or an expectation that learning the code should take months or even years. And, as design professionals, we're expected to follow the code in Chattanooga today and the one in Knoxville tomorrow and the one in North Carolina and Ohio and this, that, and the other. I see, well, that just came out last month. Well, haven't really caught that part. Well, they're not enforcing that yet, so we really haven't gotten to that. And that's not right. So, I think we first need to look inward as a design profession. But I see issues with building officials as well. And I've talked to several in the past couple of years, mostly in the context of the energy capital. But what I see in general is at the plans review level, a general lack of knowledge about building plans. And that is their job. There's certainly not the level of detailed knowledge that one would need to review the engineering aspect. There's not a base level of education among plans reviewers. Most reviewers have a poor ability to write. They can't communicate, and most of our plans review documents are checklists. And if you've ever tried to negotiate, you can't get anything in writing. And what I've learned is there's not an unwillingness to communicate, but there's not an ability to write. I get emails back that are cryptic, full of misspelled words. There's just not an ability to communicate there. Building officials have adopted codes, and I go back to the energy code. We've adopted that in many jurisdictions. The state of Tennessee has done so, and we won't enforce it. Most design professionals don't even know what's in you know, I've given some seminars on the code, and I've had, the response has been, building officials will come to me and they'll say, well, you know, I really have jurisdiction over what we do, and I'm not going to do it. We held a seminar in Knoxville last year, and one of the local building officials from a kind of, I guess I'd call it a suburb, he was asked, Gary, when do you expect to enforce the building code or the energy code? And his response in front of about 100 people was, not in my lifetime. And that's what we had. And, you know, there are some reasons that one might protest the energy code, or it's not a perfect code. But the building official adopted it. You know, the design community didn't adopt it. The building official adopted it, and they won't enforce it. And that leaves me, a mechanical engineer, in a place of liability. Because if the architect won't meet the code, and they don't, and the building official won't enforce it, then I have liability because my mechanical design does not, you know, mesh with the rest of the code. And the way I reconcile that is the term usual and customary. If I get sued, my defense is, well, it's usual and customary that we don't meet the code. And that's not something that this group should be very proud of. And, you know, you can look at individual jurisdictions, but I think if you look at the state of Tennessee, that should be our example for leadership, right? And our state fire marshal's office looks at sprinkler drawings. They don't look at plumbing drawings. They don't look at mechanical drawings. And they operate off of a sprinkler code from 2002, 14 years old. And their response is, well, it's too hard to learn these new codes. We like this one. We would have to train our people, and we would have to update our checklists. And again, you know, the state of Tennessee operates by checklists. If I rarely get any comments on my designs, because I go down through that checklist. I meet that checklist. But is that true review, and is that true knowledge? I don't think it is. So we have issues in our industry that are caused by these problems. One of the code requirements for mechanical work is that a system be tested and balanced. This is the mechanical code, not the energy code. The energy code requires commissioning on larger buildings. There is not a certified test and balance company east of Nashville. Not one in Chattanooga, not one in Knoxville, not one in Tri-Cities. Somebody asked me, well, Jack, why don't you open a test and balance company? Because there's not a market for it. The codes officials won't enforce it, the mechanical contractors won't do it, and the architects won't. And, you know, they could do this if they would prevent payment requests on the basis of test and balance, but an architect will not enforce it. We have fresh air problems. One of the convenient ways to save energy is to close a fresh air damper on a building or a unit, on an HVAC unit. And we've learned how to do that. I don't know if you noticed, but in the past years, a number of schools have been forced to close for sickness, viruses, things that spread real quickly. In fact, they spread so quickly that you have to ask yourself, why is that happening? It didn't used to happen. It didn't happen when I was a kid. We have fresh air dampers closed all over our state, and it's affecting the health of our children.
Jack, can I interrupt you real quick, because I don't want to.
I've got two more things.
Okay, let's go. And the reason being is you've covered a lot of territory. We want to have a chance to discuss that without forgetting kind of where we were. But quick question. I forgot to have your name before your statement, and I apologize. My vice chair is way more on it than I am. So
I'm Jack Hopkins.
Okay.
PE.
Okay.
Applied Engineering, Knoxville.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. The next 2 points, please, and then I think Mr. Balter's got a question in response to.
You know, one of the, I guess, encouragements of this situation has been the design-build process, and the way that contractors have gotten a lot more of the power over the design process than the design professional. And we see it a lot in architects. Architects have a little more trouble staying busy than engineers, and therefore are more susceptible to being, I guess, taken in by a contractor and told what to do sometimes. I'm sure we could go a lot of ways there. And kind of related to that is the process of construction administration. Too many design professionals never go to a job site. And I remember, I've been in practice almost 21 years. And I remember early in that process hearing of another professional in Knoxville that had basically endorsed I guess 20 years ago, we approved not doing construction administration. And now we're a generation later, and our younger professionals don't really know what they're drawing. And it's a problem. It's a real problem. And because now we don't go out and look at jobs, we don't review submittals, we don't have any authority over the construction process, you're seeing real issues. And I know I've taken some time, and I won't take any more time, but I had 4 or 5 examples here, and I have probably 3 or 4 pages back at my office that I call Hall of Shame. And it's issues that have been caused by either building inspectors, mostly by building inspectors, where you go out to a job site and something is completely wrong, and they don't catch it, and if they're challenged with it, they won't enforce it. And I'll give you one example, because to me it's the most offensive. I recently did a warehouse for moonshine, and moonshine is ethanol. And if you're not aware, ethanol is flammable. It's used in race cars. And my design was allowed to be changed by the local building official without contacting me. And it was related to the size of the sprinkler line and the flow of air, which I heard somebody talk about Ted Wynn. What Ted Wynn did was very good. And, we had some real lack of competency in fire protection, and we still have some of that. But I, for one, raised my level of competency where it is where it needs to be. And what I find is things like this. The sprinkler contractor described this situation as a dynamite factory on Main Street. And it's in a tourist town right on Main Street. So, and I experience these things every day. You could say, well, you should file a complaint. You should go through process. You should go through bureaucracy. It's usual and customary, and it needs to change.
Thank you, Hal.
Okay. Well, first I want to thank you for coming and obviously preparing, documenting your concerns to share with us. And it does take time away from your profession, and although it's critical to your profession, I appreciate that. A few things just to make comment. Working in a government entity myself, you're right in terms of it's a challenge to attract viable candidates for positions when the pay plan is not always conducive for attracting ideal candidates. Now, I will say, having said that, in my experience, most of the government employees that I have worked with, and I've even locally and even at the state level, and even in other jurisdictions, a majority, and I know you're not saying this, but a majority of those individuals are very competent and very committed to the work that they do. But there are certainly situations as you described. One of the things that, and I know you don't want to hear about the complaint process, clearly you're familiar with that, but one of the approaches that I'm familiar with that seems to be more successful is to create an atmosphere of education that's not defensive or contentious, because you don't want that. And you can accomplish that, in my experience, a few ways. Certainly through your TSPE chapter or ACEC chapter, developing, I know in the city of Nashville, which isn't, it's an example, we have periodic code review forums that is hosted by some entity. Sometimes it's the codes department or a consolidation of various departments of metro government. We reach out to the TSPE and ACEC chapters particularly, or AIA, depending on the industry that would be interested, and invite them to come. Now, the response is varied, and typically we do have decent response, and oftentimes it allows feedback such as you've offered today, that the codes officials and building officials and review officials, when they hear it, especially in a public forum, it's more conscious to them. So I encourage you to maybe pursue that avenue. Also, that gives you some anonymity, and not that you're looking for that, but I know I'm very familiar with the dynamics of you don't want to offend someone that is ultimately going to be reviewing your work to the extent that you're concerned that they won't be fair and unbiased. So, again, the professional societies are good avenues for you. If you haven't looked into that, I would encourage you to do that. And also, one of the things that I have done in the past, and I've encouraged I have some subordinate engineers on my staff. And I've been over construction management in my career, and I've always impressed upon anyone doing construction management, if you make any design change or field change to any designs, you go back to the original designer of record, whether it be an architect, engineer, go down the line, because that change could adversely affect the function of whatever the design is. And it also grays the area of who is actually responsible for any liability as a result of those designs. And there are case studies that the designer of record has been held liable for designs and even changes in the field to those designs that have resulted in failure of some type. So I would encourage you, and again, you can work through your TSP and ACEC chapters to determine the appropriate application of language that says, my seal is for these designs only. Any changes to these designs through any subsequent phase of the project, I'm not responsible for, because we are in a litigious society, and I certainly encourage that and would do it myself on any design that I seal.
I'm well able to avert risk, but what I see is the position of our profession, of which this board has leadership, not being strong, doing just that, averting risk, but not showing leadership.
How do you suggest this board approach that?
I did my part by throwing out what needed to be changed. I mean, number one, I think the building reviewer should have the credentials of a professional. I'm not exactly sure what that is. I know designers don't have all those credentials. I made my firm small because I got basically frustrated with the ability of designers to do what was required on documents that I would produce. And I have formatted my business where I can sustain my business with two people doing work that I'm proud of and targeting. But I couldn't do that with a 7-person firm. I couldn't do that with a 40-person firm. And the problem is we don't have the ability as professionals to do our job anymore. And as a result, things get diluted. The competency of professionals are diluted. The competency of building officials are diluted. Contractors, all they have to do is go build it. But they have been given a lot of the power in this process by this board.
I don't necessarily agree with that assessment. I mean, I think we could go into a long conversation, and I'm going to defer to the chair. But I think, in my opinion, your comments make me think that maybe you're not clear on what the function of this board is. So,
well, and that may be true. This is my second time. I came to this board meeting when the issue of MIC was an issue, microbiologically induced corrosion. It's a big word. But what I saw was the board deferring to the fire marshal's office. The fire marshal representative wasn't even a professional, and he was asking something that the legal representative told him he couldn't do, and the board let him do it. So my first experience was negative, I would say. I'm not sure what the answer is, but we have a situation that people aren't willing to own up to. And that would be the first step, is to own up to it. Because, contractors that I work with, and I work quite a bit in the design build, arena, if you would say. Several, including several that are PEs, say, Jack, you're not going to be around 10 years from now, 15 years from now. The attitude of a contractor is that the engineer isn't going to be an integral part of all the decision making. You're going to work for somebody. Now, that's probably not true, but that's the opinion of a lot of people. And you see that, and I noticed, and I couldn't come Wednesday, but I noticed one of the topics Wednesday was energy services companies. And what you're seeing there is the company hiring a PE that works in the process, but they work for somebody who's got the hands on the purse strings. And you can start drawing diagrams of how money affects all this. If you've ever applied for a security clearance, you know that one of the questions that they ask about you is your financial situation. Do you owe people money? And, our state, our school systems, our city and local governments are not funded. There's political reasons for that. But when people start to get in situations where there's not funding, then all kinds of monkey business starts. And it goes on to downright fraud. And we're seeing that. And we're seeing that within professionals, contractors. It's out there. And I see it, twice. I've either been terminated or withdrew from a job just in the last year because of things I either knew or refused to do.
All right, Ricky.
Well, I'll speak for myself and not the board, but I'm 100% sympathetic to what you're talking about. I mean, these are real world issues. And this is where the kind of the rubber hits the pavement. And they're out there. And I'm not sure what the board can do about it. I mean, the big picture question you're asking is, should building code officials be registered professionals? That's the big picture.
That's one, yeah.
And are there any states that require, any boards in the United States that require that? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't
know. But I'm sympathetic. I mean, I've been practicing for 33 years, and everything you said, I was a mechanical engineer, and you don't want to get in a position where the owners that hire engineers that are professional and follow the code are getting punished. And that's basically kind of what can happen at this point. So I think, I don't need to tell you this, but for myself, we don't do any work where we don't do CA, submittal review and inspections. If they won't let us do that, we don't take the job. I'm okay with going out of business if that is no longer. I'm just glad I was trained in produce so that I can go work for a grocery store. So.
And as that continues, as you go out of business and as I go out of business, the contractor will be right.
Yeah, I think, and I think though in the long run, I'm not I'm not quite so sure that we're gonna go out of business. I think the need is there just based on the phone calls we get. If nothing else, to be problem solvers when things are messed up. But I think it's a problem, and I don't know what the answer is. I think the board, I think it is maybe under our purview to talk about the big picture. But I don't think we can solve the present day process necessarily with code officials and contractors and economics and that sort of thing. All we can do is encourage design professionals to follow the code and do what they know is right, good engineering and proper engineering. And so far, I feel like that all that has done is gotten us better clients, the ones who want to follow the code, the ones who understand energy, the ones who understand that we don't want to get sick people in our buildings. And I feel like the clients who don't want that have kind of fallen away from us.
I think, Frank?
Yeah, Frank Webster, I'm an architect, so I'm the guy you're saying.
He's a good one, though.
Yeah, you know, I hate that you're experiencing all that, and maybe I'm just lucky, but I feel your pain and I know what you're talking about, but I just have not had the problems with building officials. I mean, we've had back and forth and all this, but to me, ultimately, we're the registered professional. You're the registered professional. And what you give to the building code for plan review should be perfect. It should meet the code. And he's there, he's studied the code. There's a lot more to the architectural and engineering profession than the building code. I mean, that's a minimum standard that we follow. There's a lot more to design than that. And it's amazing to me that you're concerned that you want another registered professional looking at it. Because all he's doing is looking at it, picking up the few things he sees that he thinks might be a code issue. And, nobody's here perfect when I said that. And, occasionally they pick up things that I look at and go, gosh, I should have caught that. And that helps. But I'm the one responsible, not him. And that's the thing that I'm not sure I understand from your argument, because ultimately you're the one responsible, not this whoever looks over the plan. They're there to issue a permit. And they do cursory inspections. If anybody here depends on a local building authority to do your inspection for you, you're in trouble. And now I agree with you, if they're out there telling somebody to do less or change some design, they don't need to do it. And that can be brought up either to the state fire marshal, because they're supposed to look over plan reviews. Or you can bring, if there's architects saying don't do things, we can come talk to them at the board.
State fire marshal does not look at jobs on a mechanical basis.
No, they review they look at the plans reviews. They check.
They only check sprinklers.
On a regular basis, they check local building departments that have the exemptions to make sure that they're not doing things. They do. It's on an irregular basis, but they check to make sure that they have some level of competence.
Well, I don't see that. And the people that are in this room are not the people that probably are a part of so much of this. But if you're people in this room are a minority.
Take your example of outside air. If there are engineering that are designing below the requirements of the outside air requirements, then somebody needs to do something about it. If you design a school with outside air and the maintenance guy goes in and shuts down all the outside air, that's a different ballgame. And the other thing I didn't realize there weren't, I'm West Tennessee, and we do have tested balance companies. But I don't see how you can have a mechanical system of any size that works without somebody testing the balance.
Think of that.
So, that's not the code official's problem. That's your problem.
It's a problem of our profession. And this board may have certain distinct responsibilities, but these are all problems, and I communicated this elsewhere. I was president of our local chapter of ASHRAE last year. We had a forum with AIA and USPDC. We had over 100 people there. And when we've had these forums of building officials, it tends to be embarrassing. And they tend to embarrass themselves over a lack of knowledge of ASHRAE 62, of changes in the building codes. I don't know how many times I've changed my designs to reflect the code and then had it commented on. And I'm like, well, this was in the 2006 code. Lavatories and handicap sinks and temperatures. One city around Knoxville didn't figure that out until about 2010. And what that shows is the engineers weren't doing it until 2010. So regardless of distinct responsibilities, it's a professional problem. And, if you...
But isn't that more reflection on the engineers than it is on the code officials?
Yes, and I'm not shirking any responsibility of engineers. I get asked all the time, hey, Jack, we're using so-and-so as an architect, but we don't like their engineers. Well, you work for us on this project. I redo, I do studies. I see so much of this because of my role as a person with a lot of experience and without the need to sell, for a staff of 10 people. I go out and sell what I can do, and I can do quite a bit with my experience. And I see these problems. And I could have an hour seminar on every one of these.
Well, let's do this, because I think we understand where you're coming from, and let me give you 2 or 3 things that we can help you with. Okay. Number one, if you see examples where design professionals are violating our rules, substandard things, we have a process of a complaint process where we actively discipline, we actively go through processes of trying to get our bad actors taken care of, okay? And part of that process is what you see a lot of times in our complaints. We have design professionals that are extremely hesitant to turn in other design professionals that are doing poor quality work because they don't want to take the time, they don't want to rock the boat, they don't want to be seen as whatever. And all they're doing is undermining the foundation of the profession, okay? We are afraid, and that's what this board's primary responsibility is to make sure that we are able to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public by not allowing people to break those typical rules. But we sitting here around this table don't know the people that you're talking about that are violating those rules. So that's number one thing that we can help. The second thing that we can help with, and I think it's extremely a very well put problem, is that we as an industry have turned design professionals into a business rather than a profession. And there's a difference. We use engineering as a way to make money instead of doing engineering as a way to make great things, okay? And I think we've allowed that to happen, and we can be a voice, and hopefully are a voice, to raise the professionalism of all of our industries around. But again, one of the ways we do that is we hold up examples of bad actors and say, this is not how you do it, okay? Because until somebody is shown that you don't let somebody abdicate responsibility for this or abdicate responsibility, they think that's normal because they're surrounded with other people that think that's normal. And once they say, oh, you mean I can get in trouble for that? That starts to change behavior, right? You've got, common psychology says you got the carrot and the stick. Well, we're here for the stick, okay? So we need to use that as well. The other thing that I would challenge engineers, design professionals, architects, codes officials. The common thing that I hear is the code changes way too rapidly, and it's held by way too small a group of people that make those decisions on when it changes. and I think they're making some things to ratify or change that. But I understand where you are too. We've had questions from codes officials that say, we don't understand the code. Can you guys come out here and certify this for us, or can you stamp this for us? Can you make sure that it's okay? And but I think part of that is not because they're unwilling, but they've got a 40-hour day, and the code, the way it's changing, is crammed into 80 hours into a 40-hour work week. Excuse me, a 40-hour day. I'm doing something biblical on that line. But so what we need to do, though, I mean, and it starts with all of us, policing our profession, and then education, and that's really what our two things that we can do is we can help police our profession, which is what we're supposed to do, and we can help educate using some of that policing action to do it. But I appreciate what you said, and I think everybody around this table would give you a hearty amen on what's happening here. We've got to do better. I would 100% agree with that.
Well, I appreciate you listening. I do have to get back to work. I'll leave you with just a lighthearted, maybe I should turn these guys in, but they're at the busy Cedar Bluff intersection in Knoxville, Tennessee. We have a business, Tire Engineers.
Send it to us.
Anybody have a degree in tire engineering?
We've seen that. We've addressed that.
Have we? Okay.
Have you guys heard about that already?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to follow up what Mr. Campbell said. I'm the attorney for the board. I'm not an engineer or architect by any means. So I just want to say that it is this board's job to uphold the standards of professionalism. And this board cannot do that if we don't have people turning in the bad actors. And so it's on every registered professional to police themselves and make sure that the profession doesn't change for the worse.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next.
I'm going to defer to Dallas.
Okay.
Comment.
We don't have to have rules on here. Nate, go ahead and name and introduce yourself so we can put you on the record, because I forgot to do that last time. Or two times.
I'm Vance Travis, architect here in Chattanooga, PWH Architects. And, I wish that he had stayed too. He was here only to complain, and it's unfortunate. But you know, we work in a building today and meet in a building today that have all the professionals that are represented in this room. And I look behind your chair there and I see a building done by R.H. Hunt 100 years ago. And Jack and his gang weren't even involved. Architects were the only ones that did everything for the building with a contractor. But we live in a more sophisticated age. And as a result, fortunately, engineers, landscape architects, and interior designers have become educated and necessary due to the sophisticated society we live in and the environment that we live in. We all need each other. And I don't know what's happening in Knoxville. I'm surprised. They do great buildings up there. And just like here in Chattanooga, one is where we sit today. So I think maybe you might be working for the wrong architects, Frank, and too many contractors. But at any rate, I'm not going to preach anymore about that. But I can't wait to hear what code reps say and reply. Jack after this.
All good.
Thanks again for being here. When I was on the board, we started this outreach thing because it's hard for all of us to come to Nashville to meet with you. I really wish there were more architects here, more engineers, landscape architects, but I don't think it's our fault because even though the email came out, it came, and I almost deleted it because I didn't understand. You get so many emails today, you start junking and trashing things real quick, and I was getting ready to click, and I noticed the TBA, and I said, whoa, and I remember those people. And so I clicked on it. But I sent it yesterday late, because I didn't even open it until yesterday, to our AIA group. And I think that's the reason. And they sent it out yesterday afternoon. So I apologize for not having more of our local architects here. I think they would have been if they had opened their emails or been known earlier through the society. But I want to say, I failed to say, I did serve, Phil and I served together. He was an associate at that time, and I remember, you know, we had 3 architects, 3 engineers, an ID, and an LA, and a public member. And the engineers were always inundated, overworked, overcommitted, and so forth, and because there's just so many more of you than the rest of us. And so Phil was one of the first associates, and now he's a full board member, and it was great for the engineers and great for the board, and it's been one of the big changes of the board that I think has been very, very positive. Another positive thing is this guy sitting right over here, John Coffin. Man, Wanda, I mean, you know, Wanda and I went through at least 3 administrators and executive directors when I was on the board, and over just 9 or 10 years. And it was unbelievable. I mean, we just didn't have continuity. We didn't have organization. John came on board as a staff member and quickly rose to the top. And thank you for staying. Don't leave. I mean, it's just...
hey, the money's good. The money is good for me.
And so you know, when I can call and he can call me back, I can send the email, he emails me back, it's responsive, it's unbelievable. We just didn't get that out of the others. It was mentioned earlier, but I really want to applaud the board for enacting the stricter and more specific guidelines relative to solicitation of design services. I and a few others brought this to the board's attention. Making changes is like turning ships around. I understand that clearly being a part of this. But it actually got taken care of in incredible short order. And I thank you again for that, because it means what was happening, and most of you know, and certainly we architects tend to be out in the bramble bushes more than engineers, at least at first, going after work. We were being requested to send proposals, send 10 copies, 12 copies, 15 copies. Well, we put all of our data together. It takes a little time, it takes a little expense. It's as thick as this tablet here, or thicker. And at the back side of it was the fee. Well, those municipal officials would take the copies. They wouldn't look at a thing past the cover. They go to the back page and say, we're going to select that firm because they're the low price. Had nothing to do with QBS qualifications whatsoever. And so as a result, the public's health and safety was really jeopardized out beyond the larger municipalities. And you've heard so many examples of it. Let's put it in check. It really is work when we hear about it, whether it's a school, it's a jail, or health clinic, or whatever. It was surprising to me it was being supported by other state agencies that help these counties in preparing their solicitation, put that fee in there. And so that's working. I want to let you know that's really working and making it much safer for the public. I continue to hope you will, Jack, one of the things he did say that I agreed with, a few things, is that he mentioned the construction administration. And you'll remember the AIA, we worked on this with Connie Wallace's help for a long time. And I finally was able to get the AIA to agree to go to you to enact appropriate law and rule changes to require require CA, but many, many states do that. And we got ever so close. Unfortunately, it was the engineering community that, for whatever infinite wisdom, they had reservations about it. And I think a lot of that might have to do with, engineers, when they're prime, they work a little different than the architects do. It's like, Rick, you're an engineer, and you mentioned you wouldn't even do a job without doing CA, but we have all too often, and it's his kind of clients, design build guys, where the contractor's in charge, and they don't want us around during construction.
That's right.
And because they can put more money in their pocket, they can reduce the quality and safety of buildings because we're not there to protect the public and our client. So I beg you to continue to try to work toward where the board will ultimately, like so many other states, require the inclusion of construction administration as part of the design process. And it becomes more and more prevalent as we do move slowly from design, bid, build process toward this design build. And again, in the larger municipalities, it's really not a problem because there's plenty of checks and balances. But when you get out into the rural areas and the hinterlands, and significant buildings are being built out there more and more as the state grows, public's health and safety is really being jeopardized without having a design professional. We even had it, and the AIA had proposed it in such a way that if it was a typical building project where the architect was prime, and we didn't care if it was even an architect or the architect of record, that at least there was a design professional that was out there, required to a certain extent during construction to be the eyes and ears, to be sure what was in the plans was built on the ground. Board finances, always a struggle. I really applaud you for continuing the grants and subsidies that we enacted when I was on the board. And it was a frustration that we had because this board generates so much revenue as a result of it being very efficient, multidisciplined. We're subsidizing the other boards, we all know that. But then what's left falls in a big black hole. And this was a way to take some of the money that we all paid for licensing and put it to a positive use that the board has control over. But I still saw where, if I'm not mistaken, there's accumulated reserve of $1.5 million that you guys have. And I know, we got a different administration than we used to have when I was on the board. It seems to be a little more open-minded and progressive, but at any rate, why in the world, and maybe you can respond to this later, but in addition to increasing grants and scholarships and raising staff salaries and the proverbial travel expense that you guys are always governed by, that prevents, we used to actually, when I was my first term on the board, architects went to engineer conferences and vice versa. The LAs went with us to NCARB and vice versa. And we were able to network and learn so much more about the problems and the opportunities for the different professions. And with this crazy bureaucratic travel boundaries, you can't do that effectively. And the other things, we keep harping on per diem. We do this for different reasons. But, governors' salaries go up. The commission's salaries go up. The staff salaries go up. And all the people given time, it's been the same for 40 years, as far as I know. What, still $50?
And you're still complaining about it.
It's bizarre. It's really, it's so hypocritical and bizarre.
But that's indicative of what we've talked about before, about the pay plans of governments not being competitive with the real world.
Yeah, yeah.
And devaluing the
all I'm
whole
saying,
thing.
just keep pounding them. You know, you just got to keep, you know, I can't tell you how many times we marched up the hill. I probably didn't get reappointed to the board because I was one of those that was crying out for justice. I read or skimmed some of your potential changes, and we all see our professions skirt the edge all too often, particularly in poor economic times. But one of my pet peeves is that has to do with the engineer side, and that is the engineers get their PE, and in the majority of cases it is in a particular discipline. And while we do see architects kind of doing a little practice of engineering, engineers doing a little practice of architecture, and sometimes that rises to the top and you folks deal with it. One of the things I see and with some of the engineers and consultants, and they may see it at codes department, is that I'll see a mechanical engineer stamping an electrical engineering set of drawings or vice versa. Now I know they took some of that in school, but they don't practice it. And you know, it's just dangerous for that to be allowed to be happening. It's not as clear, though, the way the board has their law and rules to distinguish between one engineer's expertise in another versus an architect, engineer, or landscape architect. So I would encourage you to continue to set some parameters. Maybe it's in your questions and answers that, you know, electrical engineers need to do electrical engineers and engineering, and they don't need to stamp mechanical drawings unless they're really competent to do so. There was mention of the tidal blocks in there, and that's, everybody labors over that from state to state, year to year. I don't know what you decided or will decide, but the way I read it was that that in the title of drawings and specs and so forth, that the name of your firm should have at least one registered licensed professional in the title. I may be wrong, but if that's where you're going, I personally would hope you don't do that. Some of the states that I practice in have that requirement of a firm versus individual. The rubber meets the road with us individually that stamp that drawing. And it's just like, I'm sorry if your cohort, Rick Thompson's not here today. I understand he's got a family matter, but you know, the name of his firm's Artec. You know, it's not Thompson. It's not, you know, the T may be Thompson. It may not be. I don't know what it means, but you know, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that title. It's whose stamp is on the drawing. That's the most important to me. So I think that's all I had today. I didn't have any real concerns or criticisms, and I'll stand down and let Dallas take over.
Well, thank you. I will just quickly say that we are also concerned about the $1.5 million, and we are looking at ways to get that into a more constructive form. We understand what the risks are there, but it's like everything else. Sometimes those things, you can't just turn the switch and do what you want to do. You have to go through a process with that. But we have discussed that. We've discussed the other things that you've talked about, and some of those are not they're just discussion right now, trying to get some fact gathering going on, and we've really not gone far with that. So, Phil.
I want to thank Vince for his service to the board. I felt like when I came to the board about, well, how many years ago?
40.
At that time, the board was going through a lot of changes. We did not have electrical engineers, so I became the first. Dr. Smith was kind of helping out. And Ed Johnson, and later on Mr. Campbell Sr. came along. I felt I served along with a lot of good giants in the sense that you guys really knew the profession and learned. And Ted Wynn was a great influence. I want to go back to the comment you make about the clarity between engineering. Vince, I want to let you know that I personally take it very personally when I have another engineer comes in here and he's mechanical and he's STEM electrical stuff. You had to go through a master test. Most likely I would quiz you pretty good. And the reason why I'm able to do that is because I felt there was a passion in myself. And only that you guys like Ted Wynn have left a good legacy. And I can assure you that the board takes those cases pretty seriously. I know it's always the case of more time than less is the engineer, the architects is the one that come before us when they stamp every pages. But we have cases where people who actually stamp, mechanical guys stamp electrical drawing, and you ask them a very simple NEC code question, and it was like, I just leave it to the contractor. That's a very bad answer. When you tell me to leave it to the bad answer, I'm going to ask you what's a BTU next. But I want to thank you for your service. And I want to thank you for a lot of things that we are today, because I remember the time when Ed Johnson was on board, the CA was talked about, construction administration. Connie Wallace was a big champion of that. I think the board has continued to progress well. I can probably say that coming in as an associate member has really helped me to prepare me to where I am today. So I was a young man then, but I'm still a young man. Thank you.
Vince, I'm Susan Ballard. I'm chairman of the Grants Committee. We've increased our grants appropriation by $100,000 over the last 3 years. If they would let me spend another $500,000, I would do it in a heartbeat. We were audited this year, and the finance department gave us rave reviews for how we manage our department. We do have a year's reserve in place. The surplus, we're going to spend as much as we can appropriately for education and other things that we need. So we're there with you in the surplus concerns. We have some other avenues we're looking at with revenues changing. So any suggestions you have on how we can help education more, we'll be glad to listen to those, okay?
Anything else? Good. Thank you very much. Name, please.
I'm Dallas Schroeder, building official with the City of Chattanooga. Matt, do you want to go next if there's anything I need to maybe address? Are you going to say anything that maybe the building official might? No. Okay, all right. I'll stay up and get like Mr. Travis, so yeah, the target will be larger. I really came down here to say that John Cothran has been very good, very responsive to any requests I've had about issues the board, stamping of plans, who can do what. And that's what I was going to say. I was also going to say maybe the board, I get a lot of questions from design professionals, can I stamp this? And I tell them all the time, I said, I'm not your board, and it's not going to cost Dallas Rucker one thing if I tell you you can and you get in trouble later. So maybe just remind everybody you have education available, and the manual that you put out for design professionals and building officials is what kind of a minimum to be submitted is very helpful, and I appreciate that. And I think before my time, the old building official of the City of Chattanooga actually served on that committee to help write that. And if you guys ever think about revising that, or I would be happy to serve on from the building inspection side. Now to address a couple of issues, I hope you haven't had anything wrong with the City of Chattanooga. I hope we have not been the department. If you have, now I'm the building official.
I don't get into the vertical side of it. So.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, I'm just saying that the building official is always. We have an electrical department. We have an electrical chief. I don't. Well, I say that. I'm saying it's electrical because I think everybody in the building official world has probably the most problems out of the electrical side. But that's neither here or there. But the building official, at least in the larger jurisdictions, we're kind of the final word. We should not be requiring anything as far as my department goes. I want to let you know, if it is in the code book, it's fair game. For whatever reason, when we adopt a code, the authority having jurisdiction has the final interpretation on that code issue. We have a board of appeals, and any jurisdiction that doesn't set up a board of appeals is crazy. Because that's kind of like, go over there and ask them. If they tell you I'm wrong or we're wrong, then we salute and go on. And also, sometimes somebody comes with an alternative. I might think it's a little crazy. I say go to the Board of Appeals. It costs you $100. It's like a $100 insurance policy because a group of peers, construction, architects, engineers are going to tell you they think that's an alternative. And then I don't have to maybe answer for it later. But you'll have 9 people that approved your alternative that can go to court if you get a New York attorney involved. Trying to sue you out of existence. And you guys have dealt with it, I've dealt with it. And fortunately, I guess we still got the public duty doctrine in Tennessee. It kind of gives me a get out of jail free card. So, for whatever reason. But I always understand, I'm just speaking for my jurisdiction. As far as from a statewide thing, something maybe you guys could help is the State Fire Marshal's Office, I believe, abolished their Board of Appeals, where there was no way to go to the state other than a couple of people saying, well, I think that's okay, and they've taken the approach, as you said earlier, as long as it's more restrictive, they're not getting involved. Well, maybe from your standpoint, it would be a good thing to have that. And it's just checks and balances again. I know it's time, but at least there's some checks and balances even at the state level. And I also want to say at the state level, I think the Fire Marshal's Office has not done anybody favors in the way they adopt the code. It takes them forever. The Tennessee Building Officials Association has not been happy with the way things go. They're still on 2006, we're on the 12 in Chattanooga. I think we would still like a state to go all at once so everybody can be aware of what's happening and what's going to take place. I went because of the ISO requirement. It was going to give our department a lower rating if we didn't adopt the newer code, where I was fully compliant with the state requirements. So I got pushed into that. And I thank you guys for what you do. I don't know who's doing what. If it's in a code book, we may have an issue. But if it's outside the code, I'll look to the design professionals to give us something in their opinion. You're the professionals. Give us an opinion that it's okay. And we put it in our file and we drive on. Otherwise we may be sitting there forever because I thought you guys talked about a lot of contractors. I run into the same thing with them, probably more than you guys do. And they are out there. They are changing the plans. And my department has been informed. If they do change the plans, the design professional, the person who's stamped on there, has to, at the very minimum, give us a letter with his stamp on it again that says what they did was still within the purview of my design and I'm okay with it. Or they submit a new design. So I hope that gives you a little assurance what's going on in Chattanooga. And if you ever have anything that goes on outside, I can't say that everybody's the best and knows everything about every issue in the code. And that does come through training and time, but with the shrinking budgets, I can only send my inspectors to so many seminars a year as well. And a lot of them have to be taught in town just because you don't have the travel time. But Mr. Hilbert, I'll say thanks to him. He is my boss. I'm in the Land Development Office. I do have the opportunity to travel and go to the code hearings and understand the code making process. And I will say this, within the code making process, as far as the International Code Council, only the people that enforce the code can vote on what goes into that code. Now, you guys are talking about getting a lot of engineers. I'm not a registered design professional, but I will tell you, a lot of people think the codes are becoming more based on design because they are getting more, instead of a standard, easy to follow prescriptive code and then leave the other areas into your design. We're getting these specific requirements put in there that you must design to this criteria and that criteria, and taking some of your ability and knowledge and professional judgment out of it. So, either way, we're good. We should be doing a non-structural plan review, mostly fire and life safety, The only thing we look at from a structural engineering standpoint, on the structural part, is if you follow the criteria in our jurisdiction, you've told me you've designed the wind speed, the snow load, and then I just make sure it's got an engineer seal on it, and we drive forward from there. Now, we may, if we see something that looks a little crazy, we may call and go, hey, you use this same size column, then all of a sudden you went to smaller ones, and it looks like the same thing. Make sure nobody made a mistake, but we don't question that. Now, MEPs, we do. All my people are either certified as plans reviewers through the ICC or in the process of becoming, I give them some time when they first hire in. But the one that's not is an architect, so, or was trained as an architect. I don't think they ever received, they haven't at least been to architectural school. So, I started making notes and I quit because it got so crazy. But I will say to this gentleman's, the state's saying they don't want to change their, I heard that at a TBOA meeting in the hospitality room. Randy Safer, who's no longer with the state, made that comment. They didn't want to go to the International Fire Code because they didn't want to change all the forms. They were all based on NFPA. And I said, well, that's really good. So, you know, you don't care about education, you don't care about doing something different, you don't care about trying to make a uniform code so that you guys can design and not be all over the board as well. So, I know that happens, and his comments about Knoxville, I send emails to the state about stuff Knoxville's done, and all I've got is you're right, but nobody's ever, as far as the fire marshal's office goes, all I've got is you're right, and nothing ever happens. So, I mean, I know you're from Knoxville, so they put a bunch of amendments in the code. They told me.
So am I.
Sorry, I mean, they went ahead with the amendments, and I said I thought that was making it lesser, and they go, well, you're right, they did, but nobody ever made them change it, so. I don't know. I mean, I like the guys, or I don't really know them anymore. I used to know, who's the old guy a long time ago, ball game?
Roy's still there.
Charles Cummings, yeah, I was fortunate to travel with Charles 17 when I first started, so. But anyway, I mean, there's always those issues. I want you to know, you know, Chattanooga, but if you ever need anything, if you need some support through the Tennessee Building Officials Association, contact me. I think we're one big team. I mean, I even think the contractors are part of the team. You know, it takes us all to, as they say, build a village, I guess. And if you ever think we're stepping outside our purview, you know, let us know. But, you know, we do have the ability to, I mean, we are tasked as a jurisdiction having authority, but I hope if it's not in the code book, I hope we're not. We should be asking you for your professional opinion because it's not covered, and leaving it up to you guys to design. So anyway, I guess that's.
Any questions?
Any questions? Any questions you guys got? Anything that we could possibly help with from the building official side?
Well, I mean, one of the things John brought up in my early days, I usually go with him, and some of us go to the building official meeting.
Yep.
Because, you know, I'm from West Tennessee, so we always hear about it. You probably know some of the West Tennessee stories about it. So. But you can help us by putting a word in there to include us in your annual meeting.
Oh, yeah. You know, I was thinking that they weren't there this past year, and it might be good if the board's attorney came, and instead of we just talk about who stamps what, to actually throw a little bit out there to the building officials. You know, here's your legal responsibility. You start taking stuff that's not on the plans. You start changing the guy's design. You know, get ready to stamp the plans yourself, because you're now doing design work, and maybe they need to hear that rather than just what can we stamp and what can we not. And you know, maybe
normally we've been invited every 2 years.
Yeah.
Myself and the director of the contractors board, Carol.
Yeah, I know. Carol, she went there either.
I think we spoke like a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Right. And that's what coming here. Like I said, that's great. And
Denny Moss always set that up, and he's retired now from Oak Ridge. So
yeah, I think Denny worked really hard on setting up education. I think they made it hit the easy button with, hey, here's some canned stuff we could just buy and put out there. And like I said, I've always liked it to be able to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
And this is great to be able to come in here. It's good to hear issues from my side, from our side. And if you're ever working in Chattanooga, I mean, give me a call. I hope that's our, you know, I'm gone outside the board, probably didn't hear that, but our policies and other building officials should be too. I invite building officials from, you know, there's a lot of small towns, and understand the pressures on them. You got 1 or 2 guys trying to do everything. and I invite them all the time. Also, design professionals, I invite them. You guys have always, even if you've got a project out of our jurisdiction, I'll take some time and say, hey, I think this is what the code says. I think you're in the right direction. Or even if another building official's trying to beat you up with something, I'll say, well, hey, point this, and this out to him and try to help. So
We just need to clone you now.
well, I mean, it's, and understand, like I said, the small jurisdictions, it's tough, they're out there, they don't have anybody to bounce anything off of. I got 25 inspectors, we get in the room, call each other names, throw rocks, but we'll walk out and say, this is the call we're gonna make from this point forward, and try to, and I think that the larger jurisdictions have that ability. So, anyway, and I didn't mean to be critical on Knoxville, that was just the home builder sent me all their stuff and said, this is what they're doing, why don't you do that? And I said, in the state, I said, can I do all this? And I said, no, you have to adopt it. You can make it stronger, but you can't make it any less than what we adopt at the state level. So, anyway.
Very good. Ricky?
Well, we do want to, I think, recognize and encourage something that building code officials do help us with, and that is to bring complaints to this board. Since I've been on the board, I think even the majority or significant part of the legitimate complaints have come through building code officials. And that is something that, the building code officials are kind of on the front lines as far as the plans coming in from permitting. And that's been really helpful. It's tough for the engineers in practice to see the work of other engineers or architects because we're not involved with those projects. We just don't really go snooping around saying, look, can I look at those plans very often. So anyway, that's recognized. That has been very helpful and would continue to be in the future.
I hope so. And I tell my guys too, I said, if their design goes above the minimum of the code, we should make sure that design gets put in, because we don't always know the special requirements that have been passed. We don't understand maybe the whole big picture. As you guys get months to design something and we get 2 hours to review it, and he's right. We're an overview. We walk in and look at all the whole floor on this building in 45 minutes because we got 12 other inspections to do. And we hit the high points. We can't be there every day. Special inspections, I think, has been a good thing in the code. I don't know how you guys feel. Mike will tell you I don't do that great a job with them, but we're trying. And a lot of it's just personnel issues. I mean, we're trying to remind people they need to do them. And back to Mr. Travis's comment, I welcome you guys getting back out on the jobs. A lot of my complaints I get and I deal with, and the design professionals call me and said, I broke out a job and they're not doing it like I said. So, example, we had good commercial mechanical equipment shown, basically 2 units. We go out there, they have 5 residential units taking place. And you want to know why we have a problem with telling them, there is no design there. Now, they redesigned it, made most of it work, but, that was, the engineer went back over and kind of dealt with what they had and then made them add additional stuff to comply with the code. And I kind of felt sorry for the owner. He'll have equipment that's not going to last very long, but it is meeting the requirements. And energy, any help you guys? I'm not going to say that either. Any help you guys can do with energy? This is a crazy thing. I mean, with everything we do from all the fire and life safety and the handicap accessibility, energy, a lot of it's designed. As long as they follow the prescriptive stuff, it's easy to follow. Some of the energy, I'm very fortunate. I've got 2 good mechanical inspectors that worked a long time in the industry and from the commercial side, and I think we're doing a much better job of doing that now. So, but like I said, it's budgets and manpower, a lot of it, and I tell my inspectors they don't do anybody any favors when we don't enforce at least the minimum standard. They come back and haunt everybody before it's over with. So.
Frank, go ahead. One more,
yes,
please.
Trying to say this right.
That's okay. We've got issues with anything
we have a lot of people under our purview. Thousands of people under our purview. And comparatively speaking, we have very few cases coming in front of us. We think there's a lot of cases out there that should be in front of this board that aren't. And the question is, and I think that's the part I've been trying to say right, do you think building departments, since they're normally under city, they're being paid by politicians?
Yes,
do they feel political pressure to protect the people that are, I know you know that you're getting drawings submitted to you that are substandard. A lot of times you're going to turn them back to them, or you're going to correct them and send them back to them where they may need to be brought before.
I have not really. I've got a ton of mileage out of that form. I got one stamp on everything. I say fill out the form. Just basically, John, where I'm available to do everything, maybe a small chunk, but they've stamped every page on the plan, but it still requires a registered design professional. Usually when we hand them that form, the plans leave, and they come back on with different people stamping the different pages, the different, so, you know, they know that I'm going to send them something. I haven't been much in Chattanooga. I haven't been much to you know, as they say, cast stones, because I just say just keep sending them back till we just send them back and have them redesigned until they meet the minimum standard. You know.
But do you do your review and tell them what's wrong, and then they make those changes?
We do. Well, we'll tell them what code section it doesn't meet.
You're doing their design for them.
Well, now let me say this, and Mr. Rivers, if I get one that doesn't have the whole of anything in it, yes, we'll go back and say, look, you know, try again, read the code book, and resubmit your drawings.
You're receiving them. They've got their seal on them. They say it's correct, and they're submitting.
Well, they're submitting them for review, and they have a seal on them. But I don't know we have that many. I mean,
well, and I think, and let's shut down after this one, but I think that's what our deal is we're trying to get rid of the bad actors. We're trying to get rid of, or we're trying to minimize those things that happen like that. And that's where you all, we understand somebody forgets to do something. You know, this is a shocker, but I've left a sheet out of a drawing before that was very critical, and it just didn't get copied, or I didn't print it up. Something happened, okay? So we've all done those kind of things. But when you've got people that continually give you things and you're having to hold their hand, where you have to question their competence or their ethics, those are situations that we need to know about as a board. So that let us ask them those questions. Let Mr. Lynn talk to them about electric codes, or Ricky talk to them about their mechanical systems, or, you know, let us talk to those kind of things and just say, you know, you don't know exactly what you're doing, because it's not your job to design it for them. And I think that's the question Frank's asking is we believe, just as there are complaints that the building officials may overstep their bounds from different people, there are also complaints on our side that you all are holding their hand through the process that you should not have to be holding their hand. Well, they should know better.
I think there's occasionally that. I try to tell my staff, you know, if they're doing something really strange, really crazy that hadn't been done in this town before, you know, they may be down there asking a lot of questions, and I try to look at us as a service too. I mean, here's what the code says, here's the parameters. Many days, we spent days driving the square pegs and round holes, because it ain't a clear path through the code, as they say. Right. And but yeah, there are days it's like you need to go back and you know, read chapter 10 about means of egress again, because you're lacking a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you didn't put any of them on there. So.
Yeah. Or you got some of them on there, but it doesn't make any sense at all. You know, we're not talking door swings and we're adding entry to the stairway. We're talking about stuff that doesn't exist.
Right.
And so, well, I mean, I will. Like I said, I try to just, if they have to draw it 100 times, but you're probably right, it does not do your profession any service. As, like I said, I come from the contractor side, maybe I'm harder on them because I say, this is something you shouldn't have to redo 3 times.
Well, again, sometimes we have to show people what the bad way is before we get the others to understand how to go to it.
Well,
so that's part of it.
I do not,
But we appreciate what you do. I mean, I understand. You guys have done.
The guys, if
a lot
we
of
never
things.
get together and talk about this stuff, we'll always, those engineers and architects, they think we're stupid. And, but back to the money, he'll tell you this, they keep telling me hire the best and brightest, and what is my comment now? That we can afford. And they go, oh yeah, that's it. Okay, all right.
We're all in that same situation. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for.
Good.
And like I said, if there's anything I can do to help you, I will be happy.
Fantastic.
To lend a hand or lend an ear.
Same here. Mac?
Thank you.
I'll be very, very brief. Number one, thank you for what you do. Thank you for all of your service because this is a major, major responsibility. So valuable to the profession. And Susan, thank you for scholarship part. I sit on the TEF board in Tennessee, and we do our best to continue to do a better job of educating and getting more bright young people into the profession, and it's so important. So thank you for that. And I sit on the SPE board and interact with a lot of you in that regard, and that is so valuable. Most of my interaction is with Hal and Robert and Laura and with John, but it doesn't mean to appreciate what all others ought to do, but it is so valuable because one of the things that I've heard in the discussion is the importance of the team. It's not just a piece of it, but working with the building officials, working with everybody to make sure our profession and make sure that public health and safety and welfare of the folks of Tennessee are addressed in the appropriate manner. We work closely with the building officials in Chattanooga and have a great relationship there. We do really in most of the major cities in Tennessee, work all over 10 states, and I can assure you it's not always that way in some of the other states. And I think your leadership influences that, so we do appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good deal. I want to do a real quick thing. We'll just do consent agenda, and then I want to put the legal case report after John's next one because I think those two will be fairly brief.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll take a quick break before legal case report. Does that sound like a plan? Okay. So, John, if you'll go through consent agenda, please.
Okay. Page 89 on your iPads are minutes from the August 2015 board meeting for your approval.
I move to approve the minutes.
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes.
And then on page 105, you have the staff complaint report. These are all complaints in which the respondent was disciplined in another jurisdiction. The discipline was less than a suspension or revocation, so in accordance with board policy, we issued a letter of caution and recommend closure, and you can just vote on these as a group.
I would move that we approve the recommendation.
So move. Closure. Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, professional society, I do not receive any professional society reporters, so we'll go through that. Note that on the record. Director's report, John, if you'll go to complaint data and start us there. And then
Okay. Yeah, I've got a few other comments as well before we go to the actual data part. We did attend the NCWS annual meeting in Williamsburg, Virginia in August, and of course there was a report on that meeting included with your meeting materials. Bill Lockwood, Jerry Headley, and I attended the CLARB annual meeting in New Orleans on September 17th to the 19th. We also have a report on that meeting in your materials. And a request has been approved for Susan Ballard and I to attend the CIDQ annual meeting in Atlanta, Georgia on November 13th and 14th. So we'll be going to Atlanta for that meeting. As far as outreach efforts, Hal Althrup and Laura Reingold spoke at the Tennessee Engineers Conference on September 18th regarding board outreach efforts, recent law and rule changes, qualifications-based selection, and other relevant topics. I haven't talked to them about the outcome of that. Do y'all want to make any comments about that?
It's favorable. The response was favorable.
Good job.
Thank you, Matt.
Good to hear. I didn't know if any like burning issues were brought to your attention that the board wasn't aware of. Okay. I also filmed 2 Did You Know videos for the department on September 10th, which eventually are supposed to be posted on YouTube. And one video featured consumer tips, the other is aimed more at applicants and licensees, tips for that audience. So I don't know how good they'll be, but we did.
Can we leave comments?
Is this like YouTube? Like YouTube?
Oh,
I doubt it.
yeah, probably.
No, I think
We'll bombard it with favorable comments.
You need a million hit before you get some money, though.
Yeah. And I'm going to be addressing students in the mechatronics engineering program at MTSU next week on Friday, the 23rd at 9 o'clock.
Is that MTSU?
Yes, but be similar to the presentation that I did yesterday, of course, encouraging licensure. I've mentioned this in our other committee meetings. Our new licensing system went live on September 9th, and we are experiencing some difficulties with the new system, but nothing that we can't work around at this point. The main thing we're waiting on is to get the link to our new online renewal system posted on the department site. We're getting a lot of questions about that. It hasn't been put out there yet because they were waiting until notices went out to all of those subject for renewal right now with a special number that they have to plug in order to renew online. It's an individual organization number that's been assigned by our new licensing system. They have to have that number in order to log in to renew their license. You can't just enter your license number and zip code like you could in the old system.
John, let me add that if you need to register now, call us. We can get you through it.
Right, we can give you that number.
We can give you the number.
We've had a lot of people contact us and they want that information because they need to renew by the end of the month. So, but the notices are supposed to be mailed out soon, hopefully by next week, that will provide the registrants subject to renewal with that number. And then the link's going to be restored to our website. The online renewal system works great. Very few problems with that. And as I mentioned yesterday, there's no additional fee charge now to renew online. So it's $140. You don't have to pay $4.85 extra, whatever it was, to renew online like you did with our old system. So it's a big improvement. I think everybody will like it. The board newsletter is complete, the one that we've been working on for several months, waiting on rules to be filed and so forth. It's on our website. Notifications are supposed to be sent out next week, I've been told. So our notification system has actually been down. So that's why it hasn't gone out yet. But that should go out to all of our registrants very soon. But it's on our website currently. Any questions on any of that information? Okay. And on page 106, you have complaint data. And you will see on your iPads, page 106. You'll see we have very few open complaints as of the 8th of October. We have 15 open complaints. Our percent on time, where the clock was stopped within 180 days, was 100%. So we're doing great there. And doing very well on our complaint numbers. And then you also have civil penalties assessed and received. And then licensing data is on page 108.
Yes, and I need to apologize for there's some missing numbers, and I just didn't have the time to review that before I printed it out.
Shame on you, Wanda.
Wanda, is it because you've been assigned additional duties and have struggled?
Don't get her started.
Note that I'm nodding.
Okay, and also page 35, you have the financial data. That's further back in the materials,
Oh.
because that was discussed by the finance committee yesterday, which I think most of you probably overheard. So I don't know if we need to go through that information again, but as Mr. Travis alluded to, we do have a reserve balance of about $1.5 million. So we're definitely not hurting financially at this point. We're easily able to cover our expenses with our revenue.
And I make a comment on that too right now on the financial data. We are in good shape. We're still with the FE, the way it is, and different things. We're still not 100% sure how all this run rate's going to work, and we're looking at a couple scenarios that may help us, help our registrants, as well as maybe help the grant long term. And we'll look at those next meeting.
Yeah, starting next year, we'll see a slight, very slight revenue reduction because we're changing the application process for the fundamentals of engineering exams, where they're only going to apply with us after they pass the test. Right now, all candidates, whether they pass or fail, have to submit an application, but it's a small amount, $15. So that's not going to be a big financial impact, but there'll be a slight revenue reduction because we're only going to see the ones that pass at that point, no longer the ones that fail. So anyway.
All right. Any questions for John? Anybody? All right. Thank you. We're going to take a 10-minute break. It's right now 10:34. Let's say 10:45, which is technically 11 minutes. But that'll give everybody a chance to go do their thing. And we'll come back at 10:45 for Elder.
The thing.
Nothing but a thing.
The thing.
Okay. So we'll call us all back to order. We've got one more that's kind of, we'll matriculate in here in just a second.
Great.
All right. We skipped over Ellery's legal case report, so let's go back to that. Page, Ellery.
Oh, there is no page there. I didn't have anything printed and typed up for you because I just have two cases to present, and none of them have official formal recommendations. So I figured it wasn't really necessary.
Okay.
Just to give you an update and show you the direction we're thinking of going, and see if y'all agree and approve. The first case is case number 2015-01688, and I'm going to give you my recommendation and a brief explanation, and then I will give it to Mr. King, who I also have looked at this issue. This is a case, it came about from a contractor's case. There's a litigation in a contractor's case, and it came out that the issue is about some beam, LVL beam, and what the LAM.
The laminated beam.
And so there is an engineering report that was issued explaining that this was okay, he'd reviewed it, it was fine in this construction. He ended up retracting the report and returning the fee after he found that the manufacturer did not agree. And so this report came out, the contractor was still using it as a defense that he didn't have to make the manufacturer's repairs. So it's just a weird situation. I had Mr. King look at it, and he can explain it in a lot more detail.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, there's not a lot more detail because the report that the engineer did on this beam was really just a letter that said it was okay. There's no detail for me to look at and say, yeah, he knows what he's doing, or no, he doesn't. But the problem is, like Elvis said, when he found out that the homeowner, I think it was, had contacted the contractor, and the contractor had contacted the beam supplier, the beam supplier agreed that something was wrong and had another engineer detail a fix. But between the contractor's board, the property owner, homeowner, hadn't been able to get the house fixed, so he struggled with this whole issue. So it was very confusing reading the file because it kept talking about a complaint, but the complaint wasn't to us, it was to the contractor's board.
The homeowner who filed a complaint with the contractor's board, the contractor is using this report that was retracted, saying he doesn't have to make the fix because it's okay as is, but the manufacturer of the beam says it's not okay, you have to go back and fix it. So that's the issue. And so that's a different case with contractor's board. The issue here is a report that was made about this beam and then it was retracted, and it was just a strange case. So our recommendation, Mr. King's recommendation, would be an informal hearing just with one board member to find out more about what was actually going on.
Yeah, and it does bother me that, if you do good work or bad work, you can't just say, oh, let me take that back. It's out there in the public now, so I think we have to deal with that. He doesn't have that prerogative, even though the contractor refunded his fee.
So we need a motion. We don't need a motion to let him do that, do we?
Just to be safe, let's have one.
Okay, that's cool.
So move that we have an informal conference conducted by Mr. King.
Okay. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Okay. Next.
Okay. Next case does not have a case number yet. The issue was whether to open a new complaint. This goes back to the first gentleman we saw at the last meeting, the informal conference with the whole board. And so what I did is we were 2 months ago, last meeting, we were looking at his plans that were submitted, and the whole issue there was they were not set for, not for construction. So there were a lot of issues with them. That whole confusion that we've already discussed in the committees caused a lot of problems. So we had agreed that since those weren't the final plans, to just issue a warning saying you have to do not for construction. But, as you're all aware, some other issues came out during that meeting. And so I had Ricky look at the final plans, the finalized approved plans that went through, to look at competency issues there. So I'm going to turn it over to you. But I guess our recommendation would be to open a new complaint based on the finalized plans, because they're completely different plans, so it would be new issues. So.
Okay. The engineer stamped 2 structural sheets and then an HVAC sheet, plumbing sheet, and an electrical sheet. And I focused on the mechanical, the M1, P1, and E1 sheets.
Well, let me ask before you go further. We've already opened a complaint.
We have not opened a complaint.
We have not opened a complaint. Okay.
This is the issue, is whether we should. And I just talked with Ricky before. What I recommend doing is, he hasn't had a chance to respond to this new issue, so instead of issuing orders or civil penalties today, opening a complaint saying these are the issues the board sees with your new plans, please respond appropriately. So.
But you have enough, you think, to open a complaint?
Yes. I wasn't the person that reviewed those before, so I was just looking at them like a brand new.
Okay. Well, the only thing is, I think the less you tell us about it.
Yeah.
That's what. If you think we should open a complaint, let's open a complaint.
Yes.
And you think we ought to open a complaint, let's open a complaint. And then let's vote on that. And then we'll hear what sheets and all that stuff after the complaint's been done, and we can answer to it.
Are you going to do an informal conference? I guess after you open a complaint, you have to have an informal with each person.
You can or can't.
You would only need an informal conference if you feel like you didn't need the full story.
Okay, right.
The
Correct.
procedure I am thinking of doing, and let me know if you want to do this differently, is give him a chance to respond. I'm going to give his response to Ricky, see if it alleviates any of the concerns,
right,
and then we'll bring it back.
That's correct. Yeah, and then if you think you need an informal conference, knock yourself out. Right. Seriously, I mean we just need a motion to. Let's go ahead and get a motion to open a complaint.
I move to open a complaint, and if an informal conference is required, we should authorize that also.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? Oh, excuse me, discussion.
Were there any architectural drawings involved in that as well?
He didn't, not in this set, he didn't stamp any. There were architectural drawings that an architect stamped.
Okay.
And with all that'll come out when it comes out, okay?
Yes, he did not stamp any architectural drawings.
Okay. All those in, any more discussion, sorry? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now, to be clear, just to make sure that we're on the, once a complaint's open, okay, whoever reviews it has whatever authority they need. They don't need the authority from the board to do an informal complaint, to ask for more information, whatever mechanism they see best to go forward. We're just doing this out of an abundance of caution. But if you think you need whatever, whoever the reviewer is, then you go do what you need to do and coordinate that with the board and the board's attorney then. Okay. I just didn't want us to vote on every step that you had to take during the investigation process.
I don't think I need that in the.
If you do, you don't. That's up to you.
We
Right.
talked to him already. I asked him questions about it.
Okay, but that's up to you then. Okay. Again, I'm just trying to make sure we stay as the board as clean as possible through up until the point we have to vote.
Yeah, and just to go back, if this does go forward as a formal hearing, you have seen him before. You have to be completely unbiased if he comes before you again. You cannot use anything he said in that informal conference against him in any new issues. If you don't feel like you could do that, and do that, unbiasedly and ethically, then we would need to have the hearing in front of just the judge and not the board.
Right.
So just be thinking of that. If you don't think you can forget and not consider anything he said at that first meeting, then let me know. And if that becomes an issue, we'll have to address it.
Well, I'll tell you I can, because I forgot what I did yesterday. So anyway, all right. So we voted motion. So go forward and do your good work as you need to. We did vote. I thought we voted.
We did.
We did.
That's all I had.
Pay attention.
No, you see, you forget things. I just don't remind you. Come on now, brother.
I'm trying. Unfinished business.
All right, page 110 on your iPad, you have the action items from August. And I did complete the 2 bullet points under my name, the revisions to our general education policy with the engineers, and also informing NCARB about the architect committee's decision regarding proposed ID experience portfolio documentation method changes. Of course, Ellery just presented the first bullet point under her name, the case that we just discussed.
And can I make another? We shouldn't be seeing that name.
Well, you already know.
I know, but still.
Because it was public at the last.
But we should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll forget the name.
Oh, yeah.
But our board members should not go do research on that name.
Yes, do
in
not
between,
do that.
okay?
Anything you find, you cannot use. And
Look
you
at
may
me.
have to recuse
Zoom.
yourself.
Right.
I've forgotten it. I just wanted other more
just
curious
erase
ones
it.
to know that. Okay.
Minute back.
All right. The second point, and that's pending because we're discussing confidentiality of references, et cetera.
I can make a statement, but if you'd rather wait, then it's up to y'all. What I found so far.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, that's.
Yeah, well, the issue we discussed before is that here, let me see exactly what it says. I mean, if we want to put that language in there, we could. I mean, I don't think there's anything legally wrong with it, but the issue we discussed yesterday about the confidentiality that we're still working on.
Okay.
That's really all I have to say.
Okay. We talked about the engineering committee meeting too, so we can address that. Part of
And
it.
the third point has been done, that has been nailed out, so.
Okay. All right.
And, Rick Thompson wasn't here, so we're still waiting on him to complete his duty for the reference manuals. That concludes action items.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for John or Ellery? Anything? All right. Thank you all very much. A quick, didn't ask, no formals in December?
No.
Okay, so we can take that off our calendar.
I had one quick question about complaint or actions in other jurisdictions. We all were copied on the Alabama information. Have we seen an increase of complaints and disciplinary actions from Alabama that have affected our, because of the QBS in public and private? I was just curious. Does anybody, because that's something a number of registrants have kind of put across my desk, see what Alabama's doing, and I was just curious if that had if the number of disciplinary cases in Alabama have increased, and if any of those have affected our registrants. Just something to look for maybe going forward.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't know at this point.
Yeah, it probably is a little bit premature.
Yeah, down the road, that's a possibility.
I was just curious, and that's really more of a curiosity and something that some registrants have been asking me because of QBS down south.
All right, good question. John, new business?
Well, unfinished, I did have QBS
Oh, I'm sorry.
listed there. That's simply the FAQs about QBS that were adopted at the last meeting. I didn't have any new issues to bring up there unless y'all wanted to discuss it further, so just for your information. Under new business, you do have, if anybody needs authorization to travel or speak in the coming months, now's the time.
I have a question. I've been asked to write an article for the TSP ACEC newsletter regarding decoupling. Do I need permission from the board?
Not as long as you're not presenting it as the board's position. Yeah, it's
Okay.
just as an individual.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And I've been talking to the University of Memphis about us talking to the students about taking the FE test, and would like to arrange John to come to Memphis and would give them his presentation along with a couple other engineers sometime in the next 4 or 5 months.
Right.
We didn't know I should be available.
Good.
I have a question. I'm teaching a class at Vanderbilt to some of their senior engineers and some of their graduate students. And sometimes it comes up about registration. I mean, it's on a different topic, but sometimes it comes up about registration. Is there any problem with me answering questions on behalf of the board and our position of licensure? I mean, I can't foresee anything, but when I'm in front of those kinds of students, just what you asked Hal just spurred that.
Yeah, as long as you're just informing them about what the registration requirements are.
Yeah, it's just information.
Yeah.
I just wanted, and so the line would be if I give them advice or give them. Yeah. Okay.
If there's an ambiguity and you say the board's position is this, you can say that, but you have to get the board's approval to speak.
Okay. Just don't want to step over the line.
Laura, I had the same situation. As you know, I thought the University of Memphis, I made a mistake a long time ago when I was an associate engineer. They all think that whatever I tell them is okay. And then they started calling the board office and Mr. Lim says so. So I was qualified by saying that I said based on what I understood the law and rules, but if you want to apply something, the board still has to go through the process. So I always protect myself now.
You always do that.
Then I say, if you're not sure,
Good
call
advice.
one.
Thank
I would
you.
say 1-800-256, 57, finish the last two numbers. Everybody say 58. So, and ask for Wanza Phillips.
That's why you got it. All right, very good.
Wait a
Good
minute.
question. What? You got a question?
Well, I was going to ask for travel approval to go talk to the students about
Okay.
the IDFX exam, because deadline's February 1st for spring registration for seniors. So when we go back to Nashville, I can hit MTSU and O'More. Knoxville, I can get UT and Pellissippi, but ETSU, I don't know how y'all feel since they're not accredited yet, but if they're supposed to come up in 2016, then, you know, their seniors could, I mean, they can go ahead and take the exam anyway. So then that would leave basically Memphis. And with Leslie being there, would that be appropriate to ask her to do that?
Sure.
Okay. Well, that would, I think it would be able to be accomplished quicker since she's in town and she's a former board member. I don't know if she will, but I'll ask her.
Leslie Cohen.
Yeah. Make sure she knows all the new stuff.
So we have yours, Mr. Bursey's, and Ms. Ballard's request for representation. I make a motion to approve those visits.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion by Mr. Balfour, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries.
On page 116, you have proposed travel for next year. Now, I know it's been mentioned, probably increasing our miscellaneous expenses for in-state speaking engagements at the very bottom of that list, since we are focusing more on outreach efforts in the coming years. So I'm not sure what a reasonable amount might be, but at least doubling it, I would say. So that would really primarily be just mileage, of course, not so much overnight stays, although that may occasionally be required. But generally not.
Hey, John, got a question on the Atlanta meeting that you go. I thought in the past usually you bring one engineer with you, or just only. Is that two different meetings?
You got the one at the top?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one's just for member board administrators. Then every other year they do one also for board chairs, and that was held this year. Hal attended that meeting. I wasn't able to go, but so for next year it'll just be the member board administrators meeting. That's scheduled for Atlanta. And then there's also an educators meeting for the Southern Conference of NCAR. So we normally send one architect member for that. And I did include, check here, some funding for a public member to attend some meetings. The NCAR Regional Summit, I thought that might be potentially a meeting that our new public member might want to attend. Because partly I included it there because NCAR is now providing funding for new public members to attend their meetings. So I think that would be a good option as long as our public member is willing to do so. And also for the NCAR annual, sending the public member to that meeting as well. Oh, and also the legal counsel's included on here for the NCAR annual and the NCWS annual meeting. Oh, because that one's in Nashville, yeah. The NCWS regional in April next year, we've got everybody pretty much going to that one as far as the engineers because it's in Nashville. And I guess, did you want to increase the miscellaneous expenses to 1,000, 2,000?
Why don't we put 2,000 if we don't use it? We don't.
I don't really know what number to put.
I think that's good advice.
So you would need to vote.
I move to approve the revised travel budget as presented.
To $2,000.
Yeah, with the $2,000.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of raising the miscellaneous budget to $2,000 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Do we have to vote for the whole travel schedule?
But you just vote on this.
No, we just voted to increase 2,000 on miscellaneous.
We voted to do 2,000. Now let's.
Well, his motion,
I thought it was doing.
he said the revised travel budget.
Well, we need to have a total amount though to do that though, don't we? To 2,000, and you have to do the total
I would
amount.
say, just vote on it as amended.
That's what I said.
Would be fine.
But then I restated it incorrectly. I thought we were just talking on the 2,000. Sorry about that.
1,200.
I said the revised budget
Okay.
with the 2,000.
Okay. Then I restated.
Seconded that.
He did say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was sitting right here.
Well, believe me. All those in favor, Mr. Balfour, questions? No, we got questions.
Let's approve this, and then I have a question.
Okay. All those in favor of Mr. Lockwood's motion to approve the revised budget, including the $2,000 At the bottom, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes, and I apologize for that, Mr. Balter.
No, it's okay. A question, do I need a board approval to attend an NCWS task force meeting?
No.
I don't, okay. No, thank you.
Yeah. But that is on your own, right? The task force meeting?
Pardon me?
Are you going on your own representing?
They're paying for it,
Yeah.
too, so, okay.
No, yeah, it's like that one. Yeah, you're fine.
All right, and then also on page 117, you have application exam deadline dates, which only applies to the PE exams and structural exams. Now, of course, since most exams are computerized, they no longer have deadline dates. So you just need to vote on these.
So move.
Second. So we have motion and second to approve the 2016 application and exam deadlines. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, John. Now we go to committee reports. And we're pulling out papers over here, so we'll start here in just a second.
I don't remember what else we went over yesterday. Let's see. One of the things that I brought to the board or committee's attention yesterday was that the American Society of Interior Designers just celebrated their 40th anniversary, and they had some economic facts of how interior design impacts the economy. There it is. And they had posted that interior designers specified last year $68.5 billion in specifications of interior finished materials and furniture. So that was pretty impressive. There are over 60,000 interior designers in the United States. There are 13,000 interior design firms in the United States, and they are working to increase the value of professionalism and preparing members to apply their knowledge. So that was something that was nice to see, that with the economy turning up, that we're doing well. Our billing index overall was up at 79 this summer, which is great. Was proud of that. You know, things weren't as good, as you all know. So one of my main pushes this year is to, and it has been for a long time, to increase our registration membership. That is the main thing that I talk about, is taking the exam and getting registered everywhere I go. So I want to continue that, and my push will be to get as many of the schools covered. We did Chattanooga yesterday, so the students understand what's coming up and the value of them going ahead and getting in the system. So that's pretty much what we talked about.
All right.
Do you remember anything else?
Any questions for Susan in addition?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay.
Landscape architecture, our meeting was fairly short. We did talk about the CLARB meeting that Jerome and I, Jerry and I attended, and the reports in your materials. We also talked about definitions. CLARB is working on a model law definition, which we're going to wait to get that to start really looking at the definition. I'm asking also ASLA and its membership to facilitate some of the definitions, and then we'll start working with the engineers and the architects to further work on the definitions as we get into that program. I think that was the main components of it. Frank, was there anything else that what covered?
Okay. All right, any questions for Bill? No? All right. Thank you very much. That's next one. And I forgot to thank Susan for her report. Architect Committee.
Keep sharing.
I think you did. Okay. We went over, and we just revisit the NCARB meeting, what's going on with them. NCARB is, they've got a study, they're doing a study about expediting licensure by the students working on the licensing process while in college, so that when they graduate, they are licensed and they can go and practice. There are, I believe, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, 10 colleges that have signed up to that pilot program. Is it 10 or 12 that had signed up for this pilot program? Huh?
I think it's 12.
Yeah. So they're doing that. In the election of officers, one of them is Christine Harding, who is from out of Huntsville, Alabama. She's the vice president-elect or president-elect. So she'll be next year become president. And I speak for myself, and I believe Rick and Frank, that we feel that with her leadership and how she presented her platform, it's going to help. It's going to help NCARB in moving forward in what they're trying to do on that. Other than that, we had just kind of a general discussion.
We discussed the definition of the practice of architecture, which we feel is a good idea to establish. However, the thought was, I know that we kind of feel that should we define architecture for the board, that everybody, that landscape architects should, engineers, not just one. And so the landscape architects are not satisfied with the definition that they have at this point. However, Clark, I think, is looking at rewriting that, and maybe by this time next year there will be a better version of that. And we felt like the engineers were a little more of a hard sell, and but that maybe between now and next year you could kind of look at that a little stronger, rather than just we don't want to do it type thing, and that maybe we can find some good reasons to actually do that. But it seems like when we get into especially formal hearings or things like that, that having defined what your responsibilities are or what you are goes a long way. And so we didn't take any action, but we would like to see that move forward.
And follow up on that, we understand the engineers have some concerns, and Bill, I think with what he had said also, once we get Clark's definition for practice of landscape architecture along with our definition and the engineers, we can come together and have a good work session and iron out whatever differences there can be some overlap, and we iron all that out, we can be able to have something that's going to benefit us all in the future when we go through this, especially when it comes to practicing outside of your area of expertise.
Yeah, one other point that we discussed and didn't make a decision on was the IDP through the NCARB. Is the number of hours being required for that is lowered from around, I don't remember exact numbers, but 5,000 hours down to about 3,700 hours. What they were doing was taking out the I'm going to say technical may not be the right word, but they were taking out the non-technical part of the required hours. Our board still requires 3 years experience. And so if you take the hours we're going down to, say it's 3,700, you've got 2080 normal 40-hour year, then you can do that in less than 2 years. So voting to follow the NCARB requirements, that's their requirement to take the exam. We're requiring, applicants in Tennessee to spend more time than what the NCARB is. So we'll need to straighten that out, but we felt like we'd like Rick to be here and be part of that discussion before we actually did it. So we didn't really make any real decisions or anything we want to bring from the board because we would like all of us to have that discussion.
And I believe one of the other things, part of in restructuring the IDP by NCAR, they're trying to make that more in line with what the new ARE 5.0 exam is going to be.
Very good. Any questions on the Architect Committee report? Anybody? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. Hal, Engineer Committee report.
Sure. We did do some reviews of some applications, had some conversation, had an interview, a live interview. I think the results of that discussion will be communicated to the potential registrant through the Executive Board office. So we did talk about laws and rules. It's on page 7 if you want to reference it in your iPad. We did talk about the definition of engineering. We did discuss briefly if one of our professions defines that we perhaps all need to consider it. Again, as Mr. Waxter pointed out, we'll probably take that under advisement at the next committee meeting. We talked about exam credit. John, do you want to cover the outcomes of the rules? And yes.
Yeah, I can. The exam credit didn't apply to engineers, so didn't comment on that. Under the SEALs rules for discussion, on the first bullet point about electronic signatures and dates of signature, they favored the wording of the second sentence there. Electronic signatures and dates of signature must be placed either across the face and beyond the circumference of the seal or adjacent to the seal to kind of clarify the intent of that rule. And we're supportive of changing the rule to state that construction documents be clearly designated preliminary, not for construction for review or by some other means to indicate that they're not complete if they're not construction documents. And also favored amending the seals rule to state that registrants shall seal the index cover or original cover or index page or pages of all design calculations that are submitted for review. See, they were okay with amending references to give the board more flexibility in waiving the requirement for past employer supervisor references. Regarding confidentiality of references and transcripts, I think concluded that would need to be a law change, not a rule change. And I think y'all were interested in pursuing that potentially through the societies. Did not favor the engineering experience change, since in some cases, if they're working full-time and working on a master's degree, they could potentially get 2 years for 1 year in that case.
We talked about.
I think you discussed the others.
Continuing.
Yeah.
We did talk about title blocks, son. That may be in laws and rules.
I may
Talk
have
about that.
talked about
It didn't in engineering. We talked about continuing yet a little, and we then also talked about, and what I was thinking of when on the exam credit was about the FE application process.
Right, y'all favored the option that's fully automatic, where
Right.
you're not asked for education information to register with NCAA.
Right.
Yes.
So we did determine that. We only took under because of time, the topics that required board or committee determination. And I think on the new business, well, we did talk about the applicant who passed the PE in another jurisdiction and what that means for us in terms of does a committee applicant, are they required to possess a license in another jurisdiction? Well, let me back up. Does an applicant for registration in Tennessee that has taken an exam in another jurisdiction, are they required to hold a license from that jurisdiction to apply for registration in Tennessee? And I think our determination was no, they do not. So that may have a bearing on the issue of decoupling in that regard. It will not change, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, an in-state exam applicant would still have to have their 4 years experience prior to us approving them for eligibility to sit for the PE exam. If that same person took the exam in another jurisdiction before the accrual of 4 years of experience, but then came to us after their accrual of 4 years of experience, we would, if they met all the criteria, we would be compelled to approve them for license. Did I state that correctly, committee? Okay, so I'm sure there'll be continuing discussion on that. At this point, we will continue to work with the professional societies, but based on that, the impetus for us to change our law may have been relaxed somewhat, even if we were considering doing that, to eliminate the order of credential for license. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Okay.
The order was in the rule.
Yeah. Correct. You're correct. You're right.
Planning on modifying.
You're right. Thank you.
We meet the law. We decided the law was okay.
Yes. Thank you.
It's the rule that needs to.
Correct. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So let's make sure now, before we go forward, are we going to have, what will we have changed? Do we need to vote on something, a rule change?
I was going to wait and do it in the big package that will hopefully be ready by December for
Okay.
everyone to look at together.
Okay.
Look at them all together.
So a registrant that goes to Kentucky, takes the test in, say, year 2. They take their test, they get 4 years experience. We would accept their package as is. They would not have to register in Kentucky. They would come straight into Tennessee, which in theory, those that want to take the test early, all they have to do is go to Kentucky to do it. And
If we change the rule, that's how it will be. As it's currently written, my understanding is the board office allows it, but the rule does not.
okay.
So
But
we
the
either need
statute
to- We either
allows.
need to change our procedures in the office or change the rule, one or the other.
Okay. But the statute allows it, the law allows it, but our rule's in conflict with the statute, and so we have to bring it in conformance with the statute.
It's not in conflict with the statute, but to do it the way this board is doing it, that is in, the procedure is in conflict with the rule. The rule is in, or the statute sort of allows both of them. It's a little ambiguous in how it says they have to apply before they take the test. I'm not looking at it right now. But if they'd already taken the test, then they can't comply with that, so it would just be kind of a moot point.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, and any unfinished business that any of the committee members want to present to the board?
Yes, sir, Ricky.
We didn't get to the title block issue in the engineering committee, and I know it was talked about in the laws and rules, but I wasn't part of that. Will that discussion continue in the engineering committee next time?
Well, it's Laws and Rules Committee will make a report, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
right?
Let's talk. Well, we'll talk about that laws and rules because we've got a
Okay.
couple things I think in laws and rules to to talk about. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Oh, and how y'all also discussed the general education efficiencies policy. Y'all made some revisions to that policy, just some guidelines for reviewing.
Giving more credit.
Where there's deficiencies, yeah.
And that's a policy?
No, this is guideline.
Guideline.
Guideline changes.
It is not published as a policy on the website, which is where I got all mine. I'm sure there are some that are not on the website.
Are you recommending, though, that we don't have anything of that nature become a policy, or?
We have not fully finished our complete review on each particular one. We'd have to look at them on case by case. I'm hoping to have all of that ready by the December meeting.
So we may contemplate that?
Yes.
Okay.
My initial thought is that one may be all right as a policy without converting it, but I have to do a little more research to be confident in that answer.
Okay. Because there's several policies that, upon review, appear we're not familiar with or complying with.
Appear that they need to be rules. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And any other committee member have anything else they want to present to the full board?
I've spent a lot of time talking about technology degrees. We had 2 different applicants that we dealt with that, and I thought it was interesting that came up again today.
Yeah.
Thought it was also very interesting that even the guy with the technology degree said we shouldn't accept people with technology degrees.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, yes. I mean,
Not today, but yesterday.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting.
That's the end of our report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Hal? Good deal. Thank you very much. Well, we'll go to laws and rules, which I reckon I was the chairman of that, and I will get very convoluted because some of those mixed up with what we talked about in the engineering committee and what you talked about in the architecture committee. So let me try to hit a couple of the high points. Title blocks. Let's start off with title blocks. We didn't come to a firm final conclusion. We do want to add that, I believe, in the rule. I'm trying to go back because we talked about a lot of different things. We don't like the definition that Mississippi had, but we do want to make sure that title blocks are considered our work product. They're considered part of our work product and put in, specified out as design. I think right now it says design drawings, that they are included as part of what a design drawing is made of. And I believe that's where the confusion that we've had in the past is the body of the design drawing has not specified title blocks. So we're going to make that change and bring it up in front of the board to ratify, but not the Mississippi option where you have to put somebody's name and all that in the thing. Basically define a little bit better what a drawing is, what constitutes a drawing. We also, go back here and find, we have, I think as Hal stated, we've got one thing that AIA will need to get involved in about retaining credit. If you decide to push that, that's a policy that we're okay with if they're okay, but it'll have to have a legislative change. And the same thing on the engineering side about references, letters of recommendation, confidentiality, which we do believe has a hole in it from a litigation standpoint, an open records request standpoint, that it is possible that those references could get called into question. Ellery believes she can defend it, but it's based on an older AG opinion that may not be as reliable as some of the things that have happened recently, and that would certainly be a cornerstone that we want to protect. So we'll talk to our societies a little bit about pushing that. The last thing that you all have not already covered is on our policies. There are about 30 of those, I believe, that we did not get a chance to review. Some of the policies don't apply anymore. Some do not have a rule that they clarify, and some are just otherwise out of date. So what we will have to do on the laws and rules is probably, John, at the next meeting, we need to look at our time, because I know the engineering committee may have a few things to do, as well as policies for law and rules, but we may have to schedule some extra time at our next meeting, either after the board meeting, because I don't think we'll have the time to do it before. I mean, I don't think 30 minutes is going to take care of it, to kind of go back over those policies and really get a little bit more in depth in what we're doing and understand the direction that we are going forward. Because we saw yesterday, as Steve said, the two applicants basically took up 2 hours of our time like that, and it left very little time to really discuss any of the other things. So these policies will be fairly involved. Some of them will be going forward. So that's really laws and rules. I think you all heard from the different committees the pieces and parts of laws and rules that were there. And we will have a rulemaking hearing probably in April. Probably April. So we'll all need to be ready to put down what we need to put down. But
and that's assuming that if we try to incorporate.
We'll get there when we get there. Yes.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Is it of interest of the board, and is it allowed, Ellery and John, could you, and I know you're going to put together a package, but could we review the policies? Could you send them out by email and let us start developing our questions ahead of time, maybe? Is that allowable?
Mm-hmm.
Is that acceptable to the board?
As long as you don't talk amongst yourselves what you think the changes should be.
Right, sure. But it's okay to develop thoughts, so when we get together, we can.
Yes, we'll make a reminder to send it out early. A lot of times I just
maybe that'll save some time. It may not, but thank you.
Early would be like 30 days ahead of time, because we're trying to get all the other reports read, plus get our work caught up before we leave. It's a big time crunch. So.
I've got the policies in one document. Actually, it's on your iPad.
Yeah, the current policies, I mean, we can send you out now. If you want my potential suggestions and changes, I'll try and get those out before 30 days, or 30 days before the board meeting.
They're on the web, too.
Yeah, they are.
Don't forget this, we talked about meeting in December, next year.
This is coming like 2 months from now.
Yeah, but December is going to be very tight because of the Christmas luncheon. I don't want to miss my lunch.
That was actually a point of conversation.
It was part of it. But here's the thing that we're going to have. If we don't if we don't at least get started in December, then we're going to be looking at each other in April going, what do you mean we can't have a rulemaking hearing till December of next year at the rate we're going? Yes,
well, he doesn't stop us for coming back in January to call a special call meeting.
I don't want to do that. You don't need to.
I know we take the business of the board very seriously. If we feel that there's so much content that it would be a time crunch, there are no formal hearings on Friday. And maybe your calendars have built in, although not desirable to stay on Friday, but we have that option. I guess.
You go. Good point.
Well, and personally, I'm okay with that because you're right. I've already got it on my calendar set aside as that day. I want to make sure we have enough time because, again, what happens is we come to these retreats and we think, oh, we've got all this time, and then we have 2 hours worth of interviews that take up all of our time, and so those things kind of tend to happen sometimes when we come to the retreats that we don't get what the time we think we have allotted.
One thing we can do in the future, our retreat should just look at the policies or guidelines. Don't conduct business. No interview, nothing. That's done before.
That's a really good point.
But don't we have to have our meetings on the?
It would be an open meeting. Anyone could come and listen.
Sunshine.
But it would be, a special meeting, separate from a board meeting, which you do have the authority to.
But on the schedule we're on, were we not due one this month anyway? I mean, do we have to have formal business meetings every other month or no?
Only twice a year, man.
Okay, gotcha. That's what I wanted to know.
If you didn't have any business, you can cancel a board meeting, but you always have plenty of business.
Sure.
Well, if it's okay with everybody else, let's go ahead and have Friday as kind of our makeup day. I think that's probably very wise to do. Because I think if we don't, we're going to find ourselves getting further and further behind on some things that we need to discuss, and something else will come up that we need to discuss, and we'll kind of keep marching down the road.
Just a suggestion, maybe, because right now the engineering committee is scheduled to come in Wednesday afternoon. Then normally we would do the board meeting Thursday morning, and that would be it. So maybe the engineering committee could meet Thursday morning, have the board meeting Thursday afternoon, and just have all day Friday.
Which Friday is that?
It's
The first weekend.
Okay, because I have another board meeting that Friday morning. That board meeting will be less than an hour. They have very little business. But I just wanted to throw that out there. I might be an hour or so late. Maybe we just push it back an hour.
The 4th, right, Mark?
Yep.
Third, if you know.
Why are you scheduling a board meeting on top of us?
That's the day they meet.
Yeah, she doesn't set the schedule.
Yeah. But like I said, it has very little business. We will also be discussing rules, so there will be rule approval, maybe a little bit of training, and it should be done within an hour from the current schedule, if not less than that.
I would think that if you're an hour late, that hour that you're not there, we'll be able to maybe start thrashing through some of it. So any questions that we may develop some more questions that
that'd be
could
fine.
arise.
Just wanted everyone to know.
Okay. Is that good with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have a question for staff here. John?
So I do actually.
John, we got a question.
Yes.
I'm famous for asking people to take and pass a law and rule exam. When was the last time a law and rules exam has been reviewed? I'd like to suggest the law and rule committee look into it.
Yes, very recently, Alton Heathcote and I reviewed it and revised the questions substantially. But yeah, it wouldn't hurt to look at it again. Y'all might want to add some additional questions.
Because all the changes, we've been doing a lot of rule changes.
Yeah, you're right.
And the QBS question should be in there now.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's any QBS
I don't think
question.
QBS is in there, right? But good idea.
Can you put it down?
You just volunteer.
Sure thing. And I can send y'all the.
No, what is it? I think we'll
Maybe
keep
y'all could draft some additional questions.
QBS question. I would think people like Hal would be great to help me out.
Okay, so John, you're going to send us a revised schedule?
Yes.
Meeting times?
So just Thursday, Friday, right, the engineers meet Thursday morning, board meeting Thursday afternoon. And then Friday is sort of like a planning session, I guess, to discuss policy changes.
But we still gonna make sure we feed the lunch. Are we gonna have the lunch on Friday or Thursday?
Well, Thursday normally.
Thursday.
That would work best because you're in between the committee and board
We'll
meetings.
get Thursday.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I already told Hal when to go to Germantown Cafe.
Of course, if we do a 3-hour lunch.
Well,
What are we,
Just kidding.
what are we thinking? Friday, would it be Friday morning only?
I think so.
I doubt it would be all day.
yeah, we'll probably quit at lunch and leave.
Yeah.
Well, the lunch may work better on Friday.
I agree.
Yeah, you're probably
Thursday,
right.
you're
Yeah.
sandwiched between, our engineer committee meetings never finish early.
Right.
And you're not gonna have a whole lot of time between that and the board meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
So, yeah, Friday.
And plus, a lot of times the architects will buy, you know what I mean?
By the lunch. Oh.
So I don't think so. Thursday afternoon, come back, they'll be sober.
Gotcha.
We are being.
I just be practical guy.
Yeah, that's why he did it, Adam.
Architects want to have the money.
All right. If you can get that revised out, we'll be good.
Okay.
Grants to higher education.
Yay. Okay. The committee met and reviewed the submittal of the distribution form that you all have all received a copy. We ended up with a minimum funding of $308,700, and we implemented our 1% for the interior design programs to receive $3,000 each. So the committee would like to recommend that we accept this grant distribution.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I do have one more thing that I did forget. UT Chattanooga has implemented a master's degree interior design program. We have not had one in the state of Tennessee in 20 years, so this is great news. We're going to have two different programs, one being a master's in interior design and urban revitalization or sustainability to historic preservation. The other one being a preparation for a career in academia, because you have to have a master's degree to teach interior design. So it's a nice thing that we have in our state again, which is going to start next fall. So anyway.
Thank you. And one more thing, Sue. Y'all also revised the grant guidelines at the meeting, so that would require board approval as well.
Okay.
And the changes there were to change the grant proposal deadline to September 15th rather than October 1st as it's currently written. And also to delete the subrecipient monitoring plan requirement, which is no longer required. So those are the two changes.
So the committee would like to recommend the following changes: that we change the grant application deadline to September 15th to give us more time to read the applications. And so the committee submits that as a motion.
Okay. Since it's coming from the committee, not an individual, it doesn't require a second. Okay. So any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, ayes have it.
The second being the deletion of the subrecipient monitoring plan requirement that no longer applies because it's all in-state college recipients of the funding and not a subrecipient from that. So the grant committee makes this recommendation and as a motion.
So we have a motion from the grants committee again, because it does not have a country committee doesn't need a second. You just read that in and didn't make that motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes.
Okay. The last item being we want to pursue information in regards to awards for undergraduate students for research. So I'm going to talk to a few of the universities and see to help put together some guidelines and see if we can incorporate that into the grant applications. So.
Susan, is your intent to talk to all the professions?
Yeah. Yes.
And it was mentioned too that we could discuss that with the deans at our meeting next October as well.
I'm going to prompt them to be thinking about it. So.
Very good.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Finance committee. I think you've got that one too, don't you?
That's
Frank.
That's right. Sorry about that.
The finance committee met. John has already presented the financial statement. So I think everybody's looked at that. If you want to get more in depth, I'll be glad to let John do that for you. But the main thing that we discussed was the amount of money that we have. It looks like we could increase our grant funding, or what might we do so that we don't keep building this up and then somebody break it away from us. And one thought was to lower renewal fees. And I think we asked John to look at maybe two possibilities of that. One lowering at $5, one lowering at $10. The thought being that the state would look favorably upon us trying to just not get rich off of this, but return it to the people that we're serving. And the other thing is, we think it would go a long way in helping us when we ask for more grant money. And so that was the thought. We don't have any motions to make. But John, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that and see what effect that really has on us.
Not since yesterday, I guess.
What'd you do last night?
But by December, I can. Sure.
What was the recommendation? $5?
How many registrants do we have?
Well,
We think there's 20-something thousand total.
22,000.
Yeah, something like that. So it's 100,000 or 200,000, but we want to make sure, again, what number we're talking about. We want to make sure we look at it from a going forward, is it sustainable? Because you don't want to lower it and then the next year have to raise it because something. And we think we've been running at a pretty good, steady pace for a while. But we would like to increase the grants some. I mean, that's what we would like to do, but we don't think we can do that without going back and reducing fees on some level.
I'm not, it's probably because I'm dense, I'm not following the logic of that.
Because the state really wants us to lower, if we have
The
extra.
state really wants us to lower, so they would rather we not put the money back into grants.
No, they just feel like we have too much surplus.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, we're kind of.
So we've got 1.5 million in surplus, and we run an operating budget of about 1.1 million. Is that pretty consistent? Okay. So if you've got 100,000 you could give back, let's say, or half of that, let's say, you could give half of it. You could increase our grants by 50%.
That's
which I think would be a laudable thing to do. Perhaps even paying for some of these tests. And I think that'd be an excellent thing to do.
But keep in mind, we've got, this is rough, and that's why we want John to kind of look at it from a going forward standpoint. We're basically doing a profit of 200,000 to 300,000, depending on what the year is. So if we built up this number, and that includes the 200,000 or 300,000 includes grant money that's in there, then we don't want to use all of that increase, but we do need to use some of it, or the rate's going to keep going, and we're going to end up with $5 million in this account at some point in time. But the state, I think, would like for us to lower our.
Well, nothing that
fees.
you would do except lowering fees would be long term.
Right.
Increasing grants you can do on a year-by-year basis.
Yeah, but once you get in there, it's kind of one of the
True.
things hard to go back to.
True, but that's not retractable.
We're trying our best to stay
Yeah,
where
I
we
just
don't have
think
to go back.
that's something we ought to be able to do sooner rather than later.
And but we want to make sure we can offer both things. Yes, sir.
And is this, the decrease, is that in the biennial registration? So we're dealing with 20,000, you're dealing with 10,000
a year.
Well, right, and I just again did that off the top of my head.
You can't crank that in every year.
And that's why we want John to look at it, because we were kind of doing some stuff off our head, top of our heads too.
Gotcha.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, we want to make sure that it goes to 140, goes to 135 or 130, whatever. We want to look and see what that number ends up being.
And we really don't want to, like you said earlier, don't want to lower the fees and then start get down too low, and all of a sudden we got to jack them back up. That just doesn't. Looks like you're not handling your finances very well.
And
so
even if you do lower them a little bit, let's say there's just, for some reason, if the registration numbers decrease dramatically and revenue starts to drop, and there's the potential of us going in the red, we've got a cushion built into the grants. We don't have to grant all of that grant money.
Right.
We could cut back on the grants to ensure that we remain solvent and stay in the black. So you got that cushion built in, as long as the grants are included in the appropriations bill each year. And there's no promise, no guarantee that that's going to continue. The department's always worked with us, ensuring that that's posted in the appropriations bill each year. But I can't guarantee that that's going to continue indefinitely. There's nothing in our statute that says that the board is authorized to provide grants, that the board shall do so each year. It's just something that's always been included in the budget for the department. So that can't necessarily assume that that's going to always continue. Just a reminder about that.
So you're going to look, I heard Robert say you're looking forward, but are you going to give us information about what's occurred in the past, revenue versus expenses, so we can look at how that improved?
Yeah, I could go back.
I mean, that's always the best way to make a
10
decision.
years, whatever.
Since 2007, when we had the downturn of the economy, I think that would be a good starting point. I don't think you have to do 2 years, but that would be where things began to change drastically.
But even then, we were making money. I mean, that's the thing. So that's
but
what
if you
we're
can
looking.
Look at that,
that's what we're
you
looking
can
at.
make some
right.
That's your dashboard. So.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. Anything else for the Finance Committee?
Increase board per diem.
We talked about increasing the board per diem. I don't know that we got very far with increasing the board per diem. I think that is John, is that not a legislative action to increase
I was going to check with.
about the board? There's something about the board per diem that we could just.
Oh, yeah, that's in statute. Right?
That's right. So we couldn't just come up with that on our own.
No.
Is that a universal per diem?
It
Across
applies
all
to most
boards?
boards and commissions, but I think some of the boards and commissions that have been created more recently have a higher per diem. Doesn't the Energy Efficient Schools Council have a higher per diem?
We have 0.
0? I thought it was 100 a day.
No, that's the TAC committee.
Oh, the technical advisory committee. Okay.
Yeah, that's $100 an hour.
Oh, an hour. But I think the $50 applies to pretty much all boards and commissions.
So anyway, we'll look at it and see. We discussed it, but it's going to be more than just us saying, "Hey, let's go do it." It's going to have to be a legislative change, and then that may mean that they have to do it across all boards, and then who's paying for that? Some boards are obviously not in the right shape that we're in, so who knows?
See what our options are.
Yeah, we are looking at that. Good question.
Oh, and that was paying for travel day. That's the other one. So.
Yeah, paying for travel day. I think Wanda was going to. Were you going to ask a question on that on travel days?
Yeah,
or
we're
was
going
that
to check on that to see whether it's
Okay.
a department
Somebody.
policy or F&A.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Wanda, you're going to check on that. You don't know that yet, but you're getting ready to get that as an action item.
Yes, let's just add it to my to-do list.
Pawn it off on Frances. She loves that kind of stuff. All right. Any other comments from the Finance Committee report? Good deal. Thank you, Frank. So next we have the Publications Committee.
Publications met, and all of our members have completed their assignments except for Rick, who wasn't able to make it to this board meeting. And I think John's, in that manual are some of the policies that John's going to make some suggestions along with that. That's pretty much the extent of our meeting.
Yes, sir, Philip.
Hey, Stephen, I know that every time we update our anything that related to our policy, anything, do we try to send a copy to the building official? All the publication that we send, like well, I think there was some good design line article and all those things that we send out. I guess this question more for John. John, will we send something to the building official? We'll write something about the QBS and all the new things. I just thought, after talking to the building official.
They're on our newsletter distribution list. And
So are they on your
list? When we first adopted the QPS rule, that was sent to building officials, procurement officials, mayors, and to many different parties. And of course, the reference manual is always available.
I think this will probably overlap to the outreach committee in the sense that we probably might offer ourselves to them about, based on what I heard this morning, is like something like they'll welcome us to come give them like a presentation, a one-on-one to their staff, especially their staff.
That we're working on. We're going to work on, I should say. We would probably start with the State Fire Marshal's office delivering a presentation to them, and then get some feedback from them on what types of information they think should be included for building codes officials. And then we could take the show on the road and go to local jurisdictions.
I think y'all should go to Knoxville because I heard a lot about Knoxville. Anyway, no, I'm just.
A lot of complaints about Knoxville.
Stephen is not from Knoxville, you. Thank you.
Any other questions for the Publications Committee? None? Good. Licensure Outreach Committee.
We did meet and discussed, I guess, some of those activities that you were talking about. Something that John was recommending for newly registered registrants, engineers, architects, landscape architects, is actually having a meeting with them to go over the laws and rules and, you know, actually kind of go over some of those kind of components as they're becoming, you know, licensed to understand some of the things that they're getting ready to start doing. So I think that was a very good suggestion. We'll try to set that up and start having a program that we would start presenting to those newly licensed individuals. Also, you know, doing, you know, the program would include, you know, what the board does, laws and, you know, regulations, rules, test, the general kind of schedule for the test and the experience requirements. Also, continuing education, you know, really refine that and make sure that they're aware of those requirements, and that they, you know, when they're attesting to that, that they actually taken, they have the hours when they're submitting their documentation. Also, you know, we talked about local building officials really, you know, trying to get back in and having our meetings with them. I think we were at your annual meetings, you know, every 2 years, and then John was saying that we really need to make sure that that continues. There needs to be an open discussion between the building officials and the board, having a better understanding of each other's requirements, and, you know, see how we can kind of continue to help them and us. And also discussing maybe even some large firms, taking some of our license requirements, QBS, and some of these other things to some of the major firms, so that they are aware of some of these laws and rules. And we've had so many changes in those that might be helpful to some of the larger firms. And then talking about the fire marshal also in those things, and then also firm disclosure forms, making sure that that is addressed with some of the firms. I think there's some, as a lot of the firms are changing, they're not really updating the board as to who the leading professionals are. So that's something that needs to be also addressed. So that was kind of the general criteria for our group. Was there anything else from our members?
Bill, question. On the your first item about on the outreach of getting with new registrants, would that be a road show?
I think it would have to be a road show. So, I mean, I think we need to come up with a program, the general criteria, and then bring it before the board so that y'all would approve the travel and the authorization to have the presentation.
And you'd have that all together, so engineers, architects, and landscape all together. That's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Did you say, I heard you say going to larger firms. Did you say going to technical societies?
I did not. But
I just think of that as maybe potentially a little more efficient than just going to large firms, because
rather than society.
You go to ASHRAE, ASCE, a number of those, you're going to catch big
all of the
meetings.
Right. Yeah. I think that's probably a good point.
It's not a bad idea to kind of connect with the larger firms, but I think
it would be a way to hit everybody.
Yeah. Get on some of their annual meetings, or rather have a slot in there that we could actually present. We were doing that at one time. We were actually coming to some of the annual meetings and having a program, on the line. So I think that would be good to start.
Just get you in front of 40 to 60 people instead of.
Right. Anything else?
More questions? Good job, Bill. Thank you.
One quick question about the program for new registrants. You were saying, thinking of that being different parts of the state?
Yes.
Okay. I think Ohio was kind of the model for that. They did the presentation at the NCAA meeting on their program. I think they just did it at a central location with the state once a year. So I was kind of envisioning doing it in Nashville and have people come from different regions, but we certainly could do it maybe in Memphis, Nashville,
I think the 3
Knoxville.
grand divisions, I think that would be appropriate.
But I mean, if somebody comes to the staff,
you can put it down as
right.
Continuing education.
Right.
Yeah, we would offer CU credit for it. Okay.
And then fill up every time they can say, did they go to the meeting instead of did they take the laws? That could be one more criteria. That's right. As a new registrant, you go to the bar.
Be sure to pass it. Had to pass it.
Thank you. Okay. Very good. Continuing Education Committee.
Yes. The Continuing Education Committee met. We had 3 kind of issues that we discussed mainly. I'll bring them up. The first 2 were fairly simple. The other one a little funny on me. But anyway, the first couple of these came out of the engineering committee, I assume, and one was whether or not to require a specific number of ethics hours in your continuing education. I know y'all have a discussion of that. We kind of had the feeling that that wasn't needed, but I would like to open it up if somebody has some real issue with that. I think it needs to be. Speak now.
I want to speak.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if I remember, when we went over at least majority of the 24 hours, 13 of those has to be health, safety, welfare. That was the intent, and because I was part of the earlier committee, the intent to switch over there was that part of that 13 hours, portion of it will have to entail some kind of ethics. I always have this struggle. You either have ethics or you don't. Okay. You can go to 1,000 hours class, you don't have ethics, you will not have ethics. But I think between the two, I'm not in favor of saying that you, out of 13, 24 hours, 6 hours should be ethics. I would say with it, I'm comfortable with what we have, 13 hours of health, safety, and welfare. And inevitably, you will come across some classes that you're going to require about ethics anyway. This ethics thing was really hiding up because of all the politician crookedness going on, but it's probably not a right term to use it. But in our profession, if we had to tell people so many hours of ethics they have to take, then I think we're in trouble. That's my personal opinion, sir.
Any other discussion on that? So does it look like the board thinks that's something that we should, and does the engineering committee need to discuss it any further?
Well, there's 2 engineers on that committee.
And so they were,
we felt like, as Philip has indicated.
Mr. Lynn.
Mr. Lynn. Or Phil. I understand he goes by the name of Phil as well.
Well, that's what advanced training.
Okay, well, so we can put that one to bed then. So, yeah.
The other one that I'm going to hit before I Brian's one is the in-car model regulations. Now, if continuing education units are disallowed, right now in Tennessee we allow 180 days to make that up. The in-car and their model regulations have that at 60 days. And we're not obligated to any of those numbers. But just in talking through that, it seemed like the consensus was that cutting the 180 days in half, making it 90 days, was a good solution. If you make it 60, it makes it tougher and tougher to actually evaluate or get that back. So I guess from the committee, I can put that in the form of a motion that we reduce the number of 80 days to make up disallowed continuing education units, to reduce it from 180 days to 90 days.
So we've got a motion from the committee, so we don't
have
need
to make that motion, because that would just be included in the rules that Hillary's going to bring.
Go ahead and approve it if you want.
Would you accept deficiencies instead of approved, disapproved? Continuing ed deficiencies, if they had any deficiencies, because it may be that they didn't take any. instead of just, you said disapproved, continuing ed, would you accept?
Yes.
Okay, just a clarification.
Okay, so
To get themselves straight.
Okay.
restate the
Frank,
motion then with
Frank.
the.
Yeah.
No,
You said Rick.
I said Frank, no, I said restate.
Oh, I thought you said Frank. Right.
I don't think I said Rick.
You did.
Yeah,
It says we don't need the motion.
Oh, my gosh.
You don't have to do one.
Keep going.
Okay, so we don't
Anyway,
have.
we would like for that to happen.
It's not going to be effective today.
Okay.
So
It'll be in the law.
Rather than me stumbling through trying to write the same motion.
Okay, thank you, Rick.
Well, we got a question on that.
Now, is this only for architects or is this for everyone?
This is for everybody.
Okay.
The whole board.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
I think architects give them 0 days.
Okay, Frank, your last one.
The last issue, again, came from the engineering committee, and that is amending continuing education rules to allow credit for patents and offering accepted, that type of thing, inside. The NCEES model rule allows 10 PDH for each patent and up to 5 for writing exam items. What Tennessee has now, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, but we allow 25 PDH hours per publication. And I think the reason that NCEES is trying to, I'm not going to say limit that, but establish a parameter for that, is because if you think about it, I could make a 2-page report and claim 25 hours, and, how do you compete against that? Did it take me 25? It might have taken me 25 hours to write it, or it might not. So it's hard to evaluate. So setting a standard that, like the NCEES has done, tends to make that something you can do. And so there's kind of 2 parts to that. That's one part of it. The other part is the NCEES model rules only allow 10 for each published peer-reviewed paper or book in the licensee's area of professional practice, and 5 PDHs for other peer-reviewed publications. So even those, so they sound similar. One's about patents, one's about peer-reviewed or non-peer-reviewed publications. So if anybody's willing, if that needs a motion, or if somebody desires, we probably need a discussion to even change it from 25 hours.
I think they will require our our rule changes. John?
Right.
Yeah, it would be part of the rule change.
So, I'm pretty open to that, even though I think it's a good idea to set some limitations and parameters on writing publications. 25 hours, that's a lot of hours, and you may have a 100-page report and can claim 25 hours legitimately, but I think since y'all did some discussing on that, if I could get some feedback from the engineering committee, that would be good.
Engineers, Al?
Well,
Bill?
Laura and I are on the committee. I think we concurred with those as Mr. Waxter has presented. But if there's interest in taking it to the full engineering committee, we certainly can. But I was satisfied, Laura.
Yeah, I think we should just go ahead and ask the motion.
Allow
the
it.
law and rules and the rules.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I don't.
I get y'all confused. I'm very
Yeah.
Rick. Actually, it was Mr. Burside. I can't speak for Mr. Burside. Mr. Burside speaks. I forgot.
I was trying to remember if I was there.
Rick, sorry. It was Rick.
Speak up, Mark.
I know.
Sorry. Rick, do you agree with what Mr. Waxter presented?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
comfortable with that.
Okay.
So we'll need to get that added as in the laws and rules?
Yes.
In the rules, excuse me.
Is that required?
No.
Can you restate?
We'll have to vote on it as a whole.
Restate it.
You'll vote on it later, yeah.
We'll vote on
Are
it
we
later.
reducing it to 10 hours? Is that?
That's the recommendation to
Okay.
follow the NCAA.
Follow
There were two
NCAA.
things, like he said,
There's two there.
the patents and then the publications.
Peer review publication.
Then once we go to the law, our rule changes, we'll probably have some more discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, but it'll be going the whole package for rule change.
How big is this package gonna be? I get worried, man.
It's all right, we've had big ones.
I'm getting tired of rule changes too, I'll just tell you. It's just constant. It's-
All right.
We've always got any rule changes.
Let's, Ricky.
One more item on continuing education. And I'm not proposing to do this, but this is a planning retreat, just to maybe think about next year at a planning retreat. But if the board thinks that the engineers and architects out there don't know the rules well enough, and that they don't know they exist, something that Florida does is when you, for continuing education, part of the hours have to be a laws and rules test.
All right.
There's an online company that, you pay $29 and you take the test. And I hated it the first time I did it, but I can't deny that it was kind of effective because it at least put my nose in their laws and rules one time every 2 or 3 years, whatever the period is. And I think it's kind of effective. So it's just something for the future. We may not have no interest in doing that. We may think everybody knows the laws and rules really well. But it's something to think about for continuing education.
Saying that, and I'll shut up after this, but I think we have an opportunity to do that since we're going to have online reapplications.
You make it a quiz before they can renew?
Well, I mean, there certainly are those things on renewals that we could, we all have taken those tests online where you have to go through the process before your registration, your certification is done. And maybe we could put some, as the system gets more adept at that, we could put that law and rules where you actually have to take it and pass it before it will do that renewal. And I think that would probably be something that my guess is that system would handle at some point in time.
Well, I can see.
Well, it keeps it administrative. I bet it would.
Well,
I'll
I'm sure
tell
it
you.
would. The question is, will our vendor work with us to do that?
Well, we might need to.
And generally, the department likes to keep the processes very similar among the boards and professions. They don't like for boards to try to customize the system too much for their individual programs. So I'm doubtful that we would be able to integrate that with the renewal system, but perhaps through some other means we can.
Okay, well, this is a good, because I like that idea. All right, any other general discussion? There wasn't one thing that I didn't see on, John, I didn't see on the agenda, and I think I got an email on it. Wilson Borden, we were supposed to present a certificate of emeritus to him, and he wasn't able to be at this meeting. I didn't know if there was a recognition process at this meeting that you wanted to do, or...
We've got the certificate to give to you, and he said he would come by your office.
That's fine. I didn't know.
So that's pretty much it.
I didn't know if there was some sort of formal thing that we need to do as a board.
You want me to come by and take some pictures of it?
Please do that. Please do that. We didn't approve that in the travel, so you're going to be pretty well messed up on that.
I'm going to start walking over there.
I make a motion that Robert does a selfie with Wilson.
And not expense the selfie.
He's not a Generation X. He do not know what selfie is.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of other items. One thing I neglected to ask y'all earlier when we were going through the proposed travel budget, next October's planning session simply has the location to be determined, but normally we would do a state park, and that'll also incorporate our meetings with the deans. So we've had meetings at state parks in both East Tennessee and Middle Tennessee recently, so normally it would rotate to West Tennessee for next year.
Pickwick?
So we got Pickwick Landing, Paris Landing, Natchez Trace would be 3 options. I don't know if there's any others.
Pickwick is the best.
Nacho.
Nacho's Trace.
Macho or nacho? Macho or nacho?
I'm I'm using that.
What are the West Tennessee people?
Well, I mean the Pickwick, but I will tell you that it's kind of a little bit unfair to. I've been quite honest, as much as I like Pickwick, people from Knoxville have a long drive.
Well, but I mean that is what it is. We've had them in East Tennessee. The people from West Tennessee have had it too.
So Natchez or Natchez?
I thought it was Nacho.
Well,
the West
Tennessee is available to us.
Which one has internet connections? That's what I want to know.
Pickwick has better internet, but the what called the Nacho trays? There was the reception is terrible. I'm telling you.
Does both have golf courses?
Yeah, both have golf courses.
Very nice.
I know Paris Landing's got one. Does Pickwick have a golf course?
Yeah, oh yeah. Trust me, they got.
Do you want to try Paris Landing then? We haven't had a meeting there before, I don't think.
Where's Paris Landing? He's
Clark.
It's up in that area.
It's a long way to get. It's a long way to get there, don't you? What's wrong with going to Montgomery Bell? I mean, it's pretty centrally located.
Well, that's where we had our last one last year.
Well, I think West Tennessee, because we have had one in East Tennessee, we've had one in Middle.
Paris Landing seems more like Middle Tennessee than West.
It's not far from Clarksville, really. I don't think.
Paris.
Whatever y'all think.
It's an old.
Let the West Tennessee.
Do we need to vote on location or what?
We don't have to decide.
All right.
See what the availability is on 2 or 3 of those, and let's decide on it in December, because I know we'll have to get reservations.
Okay, yeah, we can check.
Sometimes there are things that are happening at the same time.
I want to go to a place with good catfish.
It's okay. These are people who actually want to insert your opinion. It's okay.
Yeah, good catfish.
It's okay, because it's okay. That would be fun.
Mr. Chair, are we have a motion to adjourn?
No, I want to adjourn this here in a minute. Anything else? All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion? I need a motion to adjourn, right?
We don't need a motion. If the chair perceives that that everybody's leaving, we'll just adjourn.
I need 2 signatures from engineer.
The chairs can adjourn. The chair doesn't have to have a motion. If he senses that everybody's
If you
reached
stay any
out,
longer, the chairs come back my line too.
the chair's broke.
Well,